We showed our mettle, the best of who we are. We have organized and collaborated and come together to ensure that a group of migrants from Venezuela would have food, clothing, and shelter. And that's what we do, because this is who we are as Chicagoans. I want to next thank our many partners. And I will read a formal list in a moment, but I have to start with thanking several people in the mayor's office who have been working tirelessly for some time. Paul Goodrich, our Chief Operations Officer, Tina Holland, our Chief Engagement Officer, Nubia Wellman, the head of our Office of New Americans, Darcy Flynn, the head of our Gender-Based Violence Initiatives, Maria Martinez of our IGA team. I also want to thank Commissioner Brandy Kanazi and a team at the Department of Family and Support Services. They have been working tirelessly doing yeoman's work. I also want to thank Director Rich Gaitis of the OAMC for his always outstanding leadership in coordinating and rallying city services. Rich, thank you as well. I am joined, as you can see, by local, state, and federal community leaders to discuss last night's arrival of the migrants who were bused here to our city and reiterate our continued commitment to being a welcoming city for all. 75 individuals were dropped off at Union Station. The conclusion of what I can only imagine was a confusing, distressing, and mentally exhausting half-day traveling across our country after a long journey to even get here. The city, which has been preparing for this day for some time, quickly collaborated across various departments and agencies to ensure that we greeted them with dignity, respect, and importantly, with resources. And we understand that many of these individuals who are, as you heard, primarily from Venezuela, are fleeing violent, traumatic, and otherwise unsustainable environments in their home countries. And will continue to respond, and we will continue to respond with essential services while they can navigate their next steps of their journey. This is a very important moment for our city to stand up and unite and help these individuals start the next chapter of their lives on solid ground and solid footing. For decades, our city has been a sanctuary for thousands of newcomers. And every year, our city welcomes hundreds of migrants and provides them with much needed assistance. And when I say our city, I don't just mean our city government. I mean community-based organizations, our neighbors, stand up and rally to support. We saw that last year with Afghanis who are fleeing the terrible violence and the destruction in their home country. We've seen that more recently with Ukrainians who are coming here to join family members in many instances. But whether they join family or not, we welcome them with open arms. The assistance that we provide by our community partners who have been working diligently to ensure our safety net is woven together as tightly as possible to support each and every one of our new neighbors. It's thanks to their efforts, complemented by the city's resources, that immigrants and refugees who arrived here, and certainly last night, and their families did receive the shelter, food, and most importantly, protection. Let me say loud and clear to Greg Abbott and his enablers in Texas. With these continued political stunts, Governor Abbott has confirmed what unfortunately many of us had already known, that he is a man without any morals, humanity, or shame. Instead of treating these individuals with respect that they deserve, the due process that our laws require, Governor Abbott chose instead to inhumanely load them onto buses, send them on a more than 12-hour journey across a country that they don't know, and to drop them off without any regard for what the next steps are. Folks, these are human beings, moms and dads, young children, elders, who deserve our respect and dignity. They're not cargo. They are not chattel. They're human beings, just like you and me. Governor Abbott's racist, and xenophobic practices of expulsion have only amplified the challenges many of these migrants have experienced on their journey to find a safe place. The governor's actions are not just inhumane, they are unpatriotic. This cannot be who we are as Americans. We have to stand for a different and better set of principles. If we are going to be a leader in the world, on the international stage, but even here at home, we must reject these policies and practices and say, as Americans, we must do better. I also want to say shame on the bus companies, who frankly are just as complicit in being a part of this indignity. And while there's no way that we can fully make up for the cruelty that our new neighbors have experienced, what we have and will continue to do is welcome them with open arms and refuse to turn our backs on them in a time when they need support the most. So I do want to formally thank all of the community partners and organizations who have been providing and will continue to provide this needed support. And many of them are with us here today. Let me start, of course, with the Salvation Army. Thank you. Catholic Charities, the Resurrection Project, National Immigrant and Justice Center, NIJC, the Hannah Center, Erie Neighborhood House, Rincon Family Services, Onward House, Metropolitan Family Services Legal Aid Society, ICER, Interfaith Coalition for Detained Immigrants, Erie Family Health Centers, Esperanza Health Centers, American Business Immigration Coalition, Pilsen Neighbors Community Council, Family Focus, and Panas in Chicago. I must also thank the state, led by, of course, Governor Pritzker, and you'll hear from Deputy Governor Saul Flores in a moment. I also want to thank President Preckwinkle and Cook County government, who have also stepped up in really important ways in this moment. I also want to thank Alderman Nugent for her support and for her continued leadership in welcoming these migrants to our city and her ward. We are standing in her ward today. I also want to thank other City Council colleagues, including Alderman Boyos, who is also here with us today. Though Senator Durbin, Duckworth, and Representative Schakowsky could not be in attendance, their unwavering support, we couldn't do this work without them. I also want to thank them for everything that they do to continue advocating for immigration rights here in Illinois, and for the staff who are here today that they sent representing our federal delegation. Thanks to each and every one of them. Folks, this is, as I said, an important moment in our city's history. We're going to look back on this chapter, I am confident, with great pride because of what all of us, the collective we, have and will continue to do to stand tall in this moment and make sure that we live our values as a welcoming city. Now, with that, I'd like to welcome to the microphone Ted Berger, who is from Cook County and is a board executive director of emergency management and regional security. Ted is here on behalf of President Preckwinkle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon. I am Ted Berger, the Executive Director of the Cook County Department of Emergency Management and Regional Security. I am here on behalf of President Preckwinkle, who regrets she was unable to join you today. To our newest residents arriving from Texas, welcome to Cook County. Cook County is among the most diverse communities in the world and inspires so many to make their homes here. The more diverse we are, the stronger we are. We are proud to be a safe and welcoming county for all. It is imperative that we lead with compassion in a time of humanitarian need. President Preckwinkle's administration is working with the City of Chicago, the State of Illinois, our federal government partners, and nonprofit agencies to ensure that our newest residents have access to the resources and services they need at this critical time. Under President Preckwinkle's leadership, we pledge to provide financial support, access to medical care, and all of the services we can offer to ensure our new neighbors are treated with dignity and respect, and that they have the foundation they need to be successful as they begin their new lives here in Cook County. Additionally, in this moment, it's important to also raise awareness of the immigration unit at the Cook County Public Defender's Office. This important unit was recently established for situations exactly like this, one to help ensure immigrants in our community, including those who recently fled harm in their native countries and are seeking safety in the United States, that they have greater access to the immigration legal resources that they need. The immigration unit accepts calls between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., and their phone number is 312-603-0636. Again, 312-603-0636. In the coming days and weeks, Cook County government will work closely with our partners and our newest residents to ensure that their services and the resources they need, that we're providing them to meet their needs. It is our privilege to continue the county's long-held commitment to immigrants in our community. Thank you so much. And it is now my honor to introduce Deputy Governor Saul Flores at this time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ted. And thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, and to all of our city colleagues and county colleagues for their support, and a tremendous thanks and gratitude to all of the nonprofit organizations that the mayor named who have come together over the last few days to help us plan, and most importantly, to be there last night as we welcome these families to Illinois. I'm here also with other representatives from state government and IEMA, and our Director of Refugee Resettlement and Welcoming Centers, Lilian Jimenez. And I'd also like to acknowledge my colleagues in the Illinois General Assembly who are here with us today as well, Leader Ramirez and Senator Villanueva. Illinois has been a state that welcomes refugees, migrants, and asylum seekers with dignity and respect. And I'm proud to continue that tradition. It's why my own parents and grandparents traveled from Puerto Rico to Chicago more than 60 years ago and raised me just a few miles from here, where they knew they could find new opportunity here in this city and state. It's why Ukrainian refugees, like Governor Pritzker's family, came here in 1881. And it's why in 2019, Governor Pritzker signed legislation expanding protections for our immigrant communities and restored funding to the Illinois Welcoming Centers, which have only become stronger with his support and the support of the General Assembly, particularly Leader Lisa Hernandez. Illinois is and always has been a welcoming place. The 75 people who arrived in Chicago last night have been through weeks and even months of difficult, frightening travel to make a better life for their families. They deserve so much more than being villainized as Governor Abbott's political pawns, and we will make sure they are treated with basic human dignity. Governor Pritzker has already reached out to members of our federal delegation to discuss how the federal government will provide assistance to support our work here in Illinois. The Illinois Department of Human Services is offering comprehensive case management through our welcoming centers. Each individual will receive an assessment to figure out housing, employment options, education for any children, local health care, and medical coverage. Along with our partners in the city and our federally qualified health care centers, they are also providing medical screenings. Some of these individuals are hoping to move on to another state or city, and we will be partnering with organizations that can help provide additional assistance needed to get there safely. We are working together across agencies and departments to ensure that the transition to Chicago is as painless as possible for people who have already been through so much pain to make here. Your journey has a purpose, and we honor the sacrifices that you have made to get here. I'd like to again thank all of the numerous organizations who have been working with us day and night to ensure that this is a seamless process. And on behalf of Governor Pritzker, Secretary Ho, and myself, I want to welcome you all to Chicago and to Illinois. I'm going to repeat briefly some of my remarks in Spanish. Illinois siempre ha sido un estado.
We're watching right here live on LiveNOW from Fox, always here with you, bringing you top stories, headlines, all in the mix right here. We are going to step away for a quick 2-minute break. Stay right here with us More to come, everyone.
And the EMTs who were on site last night rendering medical treatment and made sure that the folks that arrived were examined and those that were in need were taken care of. Now I'm happy to take your questions.
Thanks a lot, Mayor. Members of the media, Ash and I will bring down the mic as always. We'll kick it off with Mariano Gilis. 2 questions per reporters on topic, please.
Mayor, I'm sure you visited the families and the individuals this morning. How was their first night in Chicago? How are they doing today?
I haven't seen them yet today, but I did see them last night. And I have to say, I was heartened by how remarkable they were. They were in good spirits, obviously nervous and had a lot of concerns. But, you know, what I think it showed was their incredible determination and resilience. So I was overwhelmed with emotion when I had time to spend with them because they were just remarkably resilient.
I'm sure services are not unlimited. I'm wondering how much longer can the city, maybe the state, help these people? And are you worried that maybe more immigrants are coming this way from states like Texas, for example?
Well, if we take Governor Abbott's threats, and that's what I regard them as, seriously, I would expect that we will see more. And yes, this is not something that we budgeted for, but it's something that we must do. And so we will figure out the finances, working collaboratively with the federal government, the state, and the county. The county in particular has already stood up. I'm expecting to see other resources come from our other partners, but it's what must be done. This is a humanitarian crisis manufactured by a cheap politician who is focused on his own political fortunes and pandering to, frankly, the lowest common denominator in his party at the expense of these people's humanity and lives. So we have to be the opposite of that and do whatever is necessary to stand up in this moment, and we will do it.
Excellent. Viviana, Univision Network.
Thank you, Mayor. It is my understanding that some people have already immigration court appointments. How soon they can be transported to cities like New York and Los Angeles? Well,
as you heard from the Commissioner Kanazi and others, what's happened over the course of less than 24 hours is really kind of understanding what their needs are, it was our understanding that some of these folks would be transitioning to other cities and states, and so we're going to help them do that. NIGC, the National Immigrant Justice Center, the lawyers, case managers are already on the ground here today, and they'll be doing that assessment, making sure that their rights are upheld, and helping them navigate what I think is often a very Byzantine immigration system. So I can't give you the kind of specificity that your question asked for, but believe that the work is ongoing to make sure that they are going to get access to due process and the rights that they are guaranteed under our laws.
All right, JC, NBC.
Thank you, Mayor. What type of collaboration or communication at all has there been between governments, between yourself and the Abbott administration to coordinate this?
Well, let's be clear. The Abbott administration has not collaborated with anybody. They put people on a truck, on a bus, without any regard for their safety, and then dropped them off here. It would be nice if they had collaborated with us. It would be nice if they had communicated who they were sending, what numbers, what their circumstances are, whether or not they needed any kind of medical assistance, whether they were going to be here in Chicago or going elsewhere. That's what a leader would do. That is not who Governor Abbott is. That's not what he's done. What you have seen instead is what we do in Chicago and Illinois. We all collaborate. We've been talking for quite some time back and forth about the possibility when we saw the threat and then the first folks being shipped to New York City and to Washington, D.C. We are showing leadership. He is not.
Seeing firsthand reporting on the border, I've unfortunately seen the separated families that were reported on years ago. What steps are in place in case the governor decides to continue to send busloads, including children that may be unaccompanied? What type of plans are there in place to make sure that families can stay together and these migrants can stay safe?
Well, look, I will tell you, it is my prayer, literally, that this man finds some humanity and doesn't do that. But should he continue to do what he seems determined to do, we're ready. We are the village, and we are going to make sure that whoever comes to Chicago, that we're going to take care of them, that they are going to find shelter here, and that they are going to be welcome. And we will do whatever it takes to make sure that their rights are respected. So we're ready, we're prepared, and as I said, this is not the way to do it. He is manufacturing a crisis. It's totally unnecessary.
Jose, I'm sorry.
If it continues, we'll be ready. Yes, sir.
Jose
Mayor,
Telemundo.
you said that you saw them yesterday. Any special thing that you remember for them? What something special that you would like to share to us?
Well, I got to spend a little bit of time with some of the children and the families, and through an interpreter, just told them that we would be here for them, and I think they were all very, very grateful. After the journeys that they've been on, traveling from their home countries, being treated as coarsely as they were by the governor of Texas, coming here and finding a completely different experience. I think some of them were a little bit surprised, but I think as the reality that we are going to treat them with dignity and respect really sinks in, I'm confident that the burdens that they've been carrying are going to be a little bit lighter. I mean, they've got a long journey to go, there's no question. But as I said, I was really heartened by their resiliency. And they seemed like they were in a pretty good place under the circumstances.
Esther, WBZ.
Have you been in touch with officials in New York and D.C., and what are some lessons that they learned that you are implementing here?
Yeah, I've reached out to my fellow mayors, but also, frankly, mayors in Texas as well. We're talking. I haven't been able to get in contact with all of them, but I'm always interested in learning from my fellow mayors about what their experiences are and what we can do to implement the things that work, but also be on the lookout for challenges that they've experienced. So, and I know that many of the people here in the organizations that they represent have been reaching out to their counterparts. I don't know if anybody wants to step up and share some best practices or things that you've learned. I'm not seeing any takers. Yeah. So, look, this is not the first time that we have had to step up in this moment. A little bit different circumstances than, for example, with the Afghanis or with the Ukrainians, but that muscle memory really has been built, and importantly, the infrastructure of support, that continuum of care, if I may, is here in our city. And we're really, really fortunate for such tremendous partners who come from all different kinds of backgrounds, but the common thread is we're here to serve.
Craig, ABC.
Mayor, you kind of alluded to it, that you've been preparing for some time. We understand the North Park facility's been being built up for at least a week. How long ago did you start preparing for this, and did you get any direct information that there were going to be buses coming here?
Well, you know that this has been happening for some time now. I think at least a month, if not a little bit longer. And we saw what was happening in New York and Washington, D.C., and we immediately knew if the pendulum swings in our direction, we need to be prepared. So conversations started several weeks back, and as the reality of this possibility seemed closer and closer, then we really kind of sprung into action. So it's been a conversation for some time, watching what was happening and thinking, again, what is he doing? He is trying to create crises in Democratic-led cities to demonstrate, his toughness, right? But also, frankly, to try to embarrass us by not being ready or prepared. Well, that's never going to happen in Chicago.
Let me just play devil's advocate a little bit with that in mind. Texas, obviously, if none of these migrants were sent anywhere else, would have to bear all the brunt of this themselves. Aren't these migrants better off going to places like Chicago, welcoming cities to get cared for?
Well, I think Alderman Rebollos kind of alluded to this. I'm happy to take and drain Texas of all of its residents. I wouldn't want to live in a state with a governor like that. I certainly wouldn't want to live in a state where they are doing everything they can to strip people of their basic rights. And let's not forget about what they've done to women and others who are seeking reproductive health care. So we welcome Texans to Chicago, and we'll rent the buses next time to bring them here. But I also think that the way in which this is done is just not right. It fundamentally isn't right. As a kid who didn't have a lot of money back in the day, and getting on Greyhound buses to travel from Chicago to my home in Ohio when I was in school here, riding on a bus for any length of time is a tough experience. But then you add to that the journey that they already had, the fact that they're in a country that's not their home country, that they're being forced to get on these buses and leave without any regard for their rights, their choice. It is not a good or patriotic thing to be doing this. Certainly, I understand the concern of Texans being situated as they are at the border. Same thing with Arizona and other states. But there's a right and a wrong way to do everything. And what Governor Abbott is doing is precisely the wrong way. We could coordinate. We've done that before. We've welcomed people from all across the Central and South America. But then you have to do it in a way that respects their rights, with integrity and with leadership and partnership and collaboration. That's not what he's doing.
Can I just follow up with that?
Yeah, sure.
It sounds like this would work well to reach out to Abbott and say, hey, if you have some more people that you want to get rid of, can we coordinate to do it in a better way?
Well, I suppose that would work in theory, but that's not the point, right? That's not his point. His point is to try to humiliate the president, to humiliate Democratic cities led by Democratic mayors. His point is not to do the right thing in any shape or fashion. If he really wanted to do the right thing, there's many different avenues in which he could access information and access cities and states. Right? He's a part of the National Governors Association, as is our governor, as is the governor of New York, as is others. But he's choosing not to do that because this is about a cheap political point. It has nothing to do with sharing the load. That's not what this is about. And I don't want anybody to mistake his actions as being anything other than what they are, which is inhumane, unpatriotic, and a cheap political stunt.
Greg, Tribune.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
I have a question from my colleague Laura Rodriguez, which is, was the city aware that other migrants that had been bused from Texas to Washington and New York had been arriving to Chicago over the past few weeks?
We have certainly heard of small numbers, and they have been helped and assisted. This is really the first time that we've had a large tranche of people that are coming to Chicago.
And
I mean, you know this, on a daily basis, we get people from all across the world coming into Chicago.
can you, a variety of speakers, including yourself, have talked about the aid that's available. Can people talk just a little bit more specifically, besides housing, besides like the Salvation Army, just about what the city and county resources are?
Well, many of these organizations that I have the privilege of standing here with provide all kinds of supports, and you've heard some of it today. Obviously, the basics: food, clothing, and shelter. Making sure that they had a hot shower, a towel, doing a triage to see if there's any immediate needs for medical resources. Now, beyond that, then, it's having intensive case management to understand what their story is from their home country, why they were seeking asylum, and then making sure that they are equipped with legal resources and culturally competent legal resources to help them on the next legs of the journey, to educate them about what the process is going to be, working with them to make sure that their paperwork is in order. And so there's a lot of other things that have to then happen on the back end, and all of these organizations represent those different pieces. Some of these folks will be going on to other states and cities because they've got relatives who are willing to step up and provide support to them, helping facilitate that as well. So I can't tell you. I think you're asking what the dollar cost is, maybe. I can't quantify that yet because I don't know, and we don't know yet, what the specific needs are. But whatever it is, I think we have some rough ideas, but that's based on assumptions. And the assumptions are now becoming reality as we sit down and talk with these folks about what their needs are. But yes, we're going to need, if more buses come, we will need supports from the federal government. As I said, the state and the county have already stepped up. Obviously, the city's always going to have skin in this game. But ultimately, what I'd like to see is an orderly process, help supported and coordinated by the federal government, so that we're not seeing what we're seeing now, which is the potential for chaos if cities are not ready. And luckily we were.
Diane, Borderless Magazine.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Are all the migrants that came last night, are they all requesting asylum?
I can't answer that question because, as I said, the conversations with them just started today. Certainly, if that is their wish, that is their right. So we're and the organizations that are here, particularly the ones that deal with legal supports, are going to be making sure they understand specifically what the objective is.
Thank you for that. And Governor Abbott's office said that they sent 95 migrants, but in the conference it was mentioned only 75 came. So were 20 sent to other states?
I can't account for that. I know what our head count was, so I can just tell you the people that were here. Obviously, we took great care in making sure that we understood and accounted for everybody who got off the bus.
All right, Nate Fox.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, good afternoon to you. In terms of the timeline, can you talk at all, just for folks that are really trying to understand the process? I know we're addressing the immediate needs right now in terms of healthcare and all of that, but moving forward, what is a timeline that we're realistically giving these migrants in terms of when kids will be able to go to school, when folks will be able to work? What can we stand behind?
Well, some of that is going to depend, obviously, on what they want to do, meaning, are they staying here? Are they going elsewhere? What are the circumstances that they're under? I mean, we had a couple of people last night who needed medical care. So it really is, I can't give you a definitive answer. We want to make them comfortable. We want to make sure that we're attending to their needs. And obviously there were a number of small children, some that were younger than preschool, so 1 or 2 years old. But the older kids, we want to absolutely make sure that they get settled into wherever they're going to be, whether it's here or elsewhere, and then obviously get them integrated into schools.
I got you. And then my second question is, I know you're not able to give a budget amount just yet. I did hear you say we haven't budgeted for this. But in terms of just speaking to critics who may say, hey, Chicago already has a huge homeless problem. Chicago already has a problem with mental health. How do we assure that those resources that may be devoted to those areas that won't be cut by this move?
Well, let me just push back a little bit on your premise. I don't think it's right to say that we have a huge homelessness problem. I don't know of any city across the country, certainly not any major or mid-city, that doesn't have people who are either on the street or housing unstable. So we are doing that. Again, that work is led by some really great people at the Department of Family and Support Services. We are not going to be in a situation where we detract from the services that we provide our residents on a daily basis by opening up our arms and welcoming the migrants who came here to our city. But we're not, I don't anticipate a circumstance where we're going to see that. Now, do we have unlimited funds? Of course not. No city government does. But I'm also confident that our partners that are with us and the philanthropic community and generous individuals, if there's a need, that they will also step up, because it's that we've seen that happen time and again, right? Through the pandemic, we didn't anticipate that we're going to have that kind of crisis, and very generous people stepped up, took money out of their own pocket, provided food, clothing, shelter. I have no doubt if that need is there, we will sound the clarion call and people will respond.
Elvia, Tribune?
Actually, the Sun Times.
Sun Times, I'm sorry.
Speaking of funding, has the state offered the city any kind of financial assisting or funding for this group? And if so, will you guys accept it, and how will those funds be used?
We never say no to money, but I'll let the deputy governor answer that question.
I wanted to just introduce again briefly, we have Lilian Jimenez here, who's our director of Welcoming Centers, and she was with some folks last night and has
All right, that was the latest there from the update from not only the Chicago mayor, but also city officials talking about the big news that came yesterday in the form of buses from Texas, undocumented migrants coming to Chicago, about 75 of them. So we had a lengthy news conference there, but just really wanted to showcase that to you. One of the big stories here today that we are following, and as Chicago braces for maybe potentially more buses coming as well there in the future. All right, we are going to take a quick 2-minute break. When we come back, we're going to have your top stories here of the day that we are following, and a new twist in the Trump FBI raid saga. We'll bring it to you coming up here next. This all coming after a special hearing that happened earlier today. We have the latest update coming up next here on Live Now from Fox. Thank you.
It is DDR2 folder too, where we have some of those VOs and stuff folder, right?
Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. We appreciate you joining us here. As always, we have a new update here on the latest of the Trump FBI raid saga as it continues. A federal judge today declined to issue an immediate decision in a case brought by former President Trump, whose attorneys asked the court to appoint a third-party legal expert to review evidence seized by the FBI when they searched his Florida home. The U.S. District Judge said that she will issue a ruling at some point on whether to appoint a so-called special master to review the evidence and temporarily block the Justice Department's investigation into the mishandling of classified records due to their storage at Mar-a-Lago. She did not say a time when that issue might be granted or denied, but of course we will always keep you updated right here on Live Now from Fox when that does happen. All right, let's keep going here with other top stories here of the day. We're talking about the heat is coming, and it's already there for a large portion of the West right now. 50 million people in the West are enduring this heat wave as some of the hottest days of the season through Labor Day weekend are going to be happening. Triple-digit temperatures are expected in the prolonged heat, according to the National Weather Service, with much of the state under excessive heat warnings and watches. One of the heat warnings said temperatures will be 8 to 12 degrees above normal in northwest Arizona, southeast California, and southern Nevada, while some of the northernmost areas of California are under excessive heat watches. And right now, let's just take a look here at the map here, and we could just see those temperatures out in the west. I mean, look at Salt Lake City right now. You got 100 degrees there. Northern California parking at 102 there. But the cool thing about San Francisco, San Jose, they says, nah, we're doing all right. We're going to hang out there in the 70s. But you can see Southern California there as well. So we will definitely be keeping you always updated for this right here on Live Now from Fox, everyone. Okay, next top story that we have here for you as it's all about Labor Day weekend, and 12 million Americans are expected to fly over this Labor Day weekend. Travel website Hopper predicts an average of more than 2.6 million passengers will be going through airports each day. Tomorrow is expected to be the busiest, as airports across the country are reminding everyone to give yourself plenty of time and check the status of your flight before you leave. And coming up in the next hour, we're actually going to be talking to Fox 5 in New York, getting some details on people already starting their Labor Day weekend travel. We'll have that for you coming up on the next hour here on Live Now from Fox. We have special coverage today as well. Starting at 7:30 Eastern, we are going to be gearing you up for President Biden's big address today. We will feature it for you live, raw, and always direct right here from beginning all the way to the end. Our special coverage will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern today. So we'd love to have you be part of that experience as we show you things all the ways from start to the finish on the biggest events around the country. All right, everyone, we are going to slip away for another quick 2-minute break. Stay right here with us. More to come on Live Now. We're back here for you on Live Now from Fox. We always appreciate when you join us as we bring you top stories and headlines all day right here. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be here with you. We're going to go out to Minnesota right now, where thousands of nurses in the state are upset over contract disputes. And we are going to be bringing that to you right here on Live Now from Fox.
Day. You know, over a decade ago, 12 years ago to be exact, 12,000 nurses went on strike in the metro. Today, 15,000 nurses in the Twin Cities, Duluth and Superior and Moose Lake are announcing our intent to strike. This strike is historic, not just because it will be the largest private sector nurses strike in United States history, but because it is the first time so many Minnesota nurses across the state will strike together. Over a decade ago, our issue was safe staffing. 12 years later, it's the same thing. The difference is our healthcare and our profession are in crisis. And we must stand together for each other, our co-workers, and our patients, and take this immediate action. Everywhere in Minnesota, nurses have watched CEOs with million-dollar salaries understaff our units, pushing us to do more with less, even before the pandemic hit. Patients are being treated in our ED hallways. Falls, deaths, and adverse events are going up. Is it any surprise that overworked, underappreciated nurses are quitting in droves? A recent study showed that by next year, 51% of the nurses across the nation will leave the bedside. People, that is a public health crisis. So it is with heavy hearts we take this action. Nurses don't want to be away from the bedside. We are called to care for the people of Minnesota. It is why we went into this profession. It is why we stayed through all those dark days of the pandemic. None of us left our posts those 2.5 years of the pandemic. But we are at a crisis, and we have to do something about it. And that's why the public, our elected officials, our other unions are all standing with us, because we know that they know that we don't have any choice. Our patients see the effects of corporate healthcare practices every day. They experience long waits in the waiting rooms. They lie in their beds waiting for their call lights to be answered. They have received outrageous medical bills from the hospitals. Nurses and patients are living with consequences of hospital executives' misplaced priorities. But nurses have just one priority in the hospital, and that is to take care of patients. So that's why we're taking this incredible step, because there is a crisis in our hospitals, and the future of our healthcare system depends on the choices we make now. It is time to put patients before profits in our hospitals. Thank you. I would now like to introduce some of the nurses to tell you more about our decision to strike. Next up would be Chelsea Schefter from Fairview.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Schefter, and I'm a mental health RN at Fairview Riverside. Here we are after 16 bargaining sessions with Fairview. Here we are after being told not interested by our employers session after session, or even most recently, we were told, once we say no to something, we need to move on. When we say no, we are done. I want to reiterate to the public today, this is not where we want to be. Nurses want to be at the bedside caring for our patients, but corporate healthcare continues to prey on nurses' empathetic nature as we give more and more to ensure patients are cared for and our fellow nurses have the help they need, all while we continue to get minimal to no help from our employer. Something must change, and this is why we have given our 10-day notice today to strike. Nurses have come together to create solutions for many of the issues we have been experiencing, solutions which will retain and recruit nurses at the bedside, safe staffing, work-life balance, competitive wages and benefits, to name a few, but yet we are told we are not the experts. Nurses are the experts. We are there every day at the bedside providing care. Our jobs cannot be done sitting at home in front of the computer on a Zoom meeting. The employer has showed us, despite what they are telling you all, they are not serious about settling a fair contract. And while they push the mediation narrative, I ask, how is a mediator going to mediate a no response? A mediator is not going to force the hospital to negotiate a contract that is fair to the nurses and fair to the patients we serve. This is why we are here today, to ensure patients get the care they deserve and to ensure we have the nurses at the bedside to do just that. And next, I have Katie Donner from Health East.
Hi, my name is Katie Donner. I work at St. John's Hospital. I've been a nurse there for over 10 years. This is not what we wanted to do when we decided to become nurses. We wanted to be inside taking care of our patients. Unfortunately, the best way for us to ensure our patients and our profession get what they need is to be outside fighting for patient safety, safe staffing, and safety for our nurses. If we don't take a stand right now, these basic necessities will not improve for any of us. It's heartbreaking and against all of our moral fibers, but if this is what needs to be done to ensure change, so be it. We have come to the table with open minds and reason and have been met with resistance and disregard. Our members have come to negotiations sharing their experiences and bringing up their concerns and have been told, thanks for sharing, with no meaningful conversation to come to an agreement. We aren't asking for unreasonable items in our contract. More security, panic buttons, better staffing, retention programs, COVID recognition, mental health care for our nurses post-pandemic, to name a few items. Our patients deserve better. Our families deserve better. Our communities deserve better. We deserve better. We will see you on the picket line. The next nurse that's going to speak is Brianna Nath from North Memorial.
Good morning. My name is Brianna Nath. I am an ICU nurse at North Memorial Health Hospital. I had the privilege of speaking with you more than 2 weeks ago when we announced that our members had voted overwhelmingly to authorize a strike. Today, I stand before you representing nearly 1,000 nurses at North Memorial and nearly 15,000 nurses across the Metro, Duluth, and Moose Lake to announce our strike plans. As I stated previously, we do not take going on strike lightly. We want to be at the bedside, taking care of our patients, but we feel that this strike is necessary to keep our patients safe in the long run, to improve health care across the state, and ultimately to save our profession. We had hoped that after announcing our authorization to strike, that we would make some gains at the negotiating table. Unfortunately, this couldn't be further from the truth. North Memorial is focused on diluting our proposals and hoping the union drops them. We feel that our CEO, Dr. Kevin Croston, needs to come to the table to help settle this contract and for the North Memorial Board of Trustees to recognize the inability of the current administration to lead this hospital and these incredibly important negotiations. We continue to be asked to do more and more with less and less. Not only is our profession suffering, our patients are as well. This past weekend, we had 14-hour wait times in our emergency room. Managers were called and asked to come in to help, but did not. Can you imagine waiting 14 hours just to be seen in the emergency room? This was not inclusive to just the ER. Several units were told to flex up, just take more patients with not enough nurses. If things continue on as they are, this will be the new normal. Nurses will continue to leave the bedside, and patients will bear the brunt of this. It is time to settle a good and fair contract that raises the standards for all workers and thus our communities. We have endured a global pandemic and are in uncertain economic times. Many working people across the state have experienced hardship while the top executive and corporations saw record profits. Our union and our nurses are saying enough is enough. This uncontrolled corporate greed has to be checked, and all workers must be treated with dignity and respect. It is the nurses and our fellow healthcare workers that have ensured the profitability of North Memorial, allowing our CEO to make over $1.4 million in 2020, which was a 12.2% increase from 2019. They continue to tell us they don't have the money or the means to agree to various proposals, but the fact is, they do. I, along with 15,000 nurses across Minnesota, are ready to do what it takes to ensure we can provide not only safe patient care, but excellent patient care. We are ready to stand together and fight this fight to preserve our noble profession. I have never been so proud to be a nurse, and we all look forward to taking care of our patients because we know that nurses put the health in healthcare, and we will continue to fight to put patients before profits. Thank you. Next up is Tracy Dittrich from Children's.
Good morning. My name is Tracy Dietrich. I'm a nurse at Children's Minnesota on the Minneapolis campus, and I work in the emergency department. Today I stand with my fellow nurses from across the state of Minnesota. Together, we voted to authorize what will be the largest nursing strike in our nation's history. Nurses do not take this step lightly. We have always worked to provide the best care to our patients. Over the last several years, this has become harder to do. This is because the hospitals have seemingly focused on profits instead of joining together to develop strategies to help us provide the safest and best care that we can. Children's nurses have continued to provide exceptional care in spite of the challenges we have faced over the last several years. We have dealt with furloughs, unit closures, layoffs, extreme short staffing, and threats to our safety. And through all of this, we have still showed up to care for our patients. Throughout negotiations, we have been told that our professional nursing judgment is less valuable than hospital policies. When nurses shared horrific stories of their worst shifts, they were told that their perspectives didn't matter. We care for the most vulnerable population, children. We want the best for our patients. We want to be listened to and recognized as the kid experts we truly are. We have been negotiating since March so that we may reach a fair contract. Our goal is to recruit and retain nurses through safe staffing, dependable schedules, insurance premium stability, a safe working environment, and a fair wage. The hospitals will tell you that there is a nursing shortage and they are unable to hire nurses. There is no nursing shortage in Minnesota, just a shortage of nurses willing to work in this unsafe environment where we cannot give the quality care that we know our patients deserve. I know that the nurses of Minnesota are ready to get back to the table and negotiate a contract that will benefit all the people of Minnesota. Nurses want to do what we do best, care for you and your family. Next up, we have Ali Marcanti from Alina. Hopefully I said that right.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, everybody. I'm here to speak about a union proposal currently on the table that the hospitals have either ignored or stated that they're not interested in. This is unfortunate because this proposal would make great strides in the critical issue of nurse retention and easing nurse burnout. Hospitals cannot continue to refuse to adopt measures aimed at nurse retention and expect to maintain status quo with the vast number of nurses leaving the bedside. Paid family leave is a retention strategy that many employers in this country are beginning to adopt, including my own employer, Alina Health. 2 weeks paid family leave is offered to all non-contract employees at Alina, meaning only if you are not part of a union are you offered the meager 2 weeks paid leave. Minneapolis city employees just received an increase to their paid paternal leave from 3 weeks to 12. As a nurse at Alina, you need to work for 2.5 years before you will have enough PTO to pay yourself for a 12-week leave. This means a new nurse will potentially have to put their family planning on hold if they wish to remain financially stable during the crucial time meant for bonding with their newborns. This also assumes that a nurse does not take any sick or vacation leave within those 2.5 years. The hospitals need to join other progressive employers in offering paid family leave to the employees that are the backbone of their institutions, the nurses. Another proposal on the table will provide parents that suffer a miscarriage or suffer the loss of a minor child paid 12 weeks off. This really seems like a no-brainer for an employer like Alina that purports that, quote, evidence-based, family-centered care informs everything they do. According to the International Labor Organization, 120 countries offer paid family leave. We can do better, and we can start with the individuals that have given it all during the last few years. Thank you. Next, we have Victoria Z. Handler from Methodist.
Hi, good morning. My name is Victoria Z. Handler, and I am an RN in the post-anesthesia care unit at Methodist Health Partners Methodist Hospital. We nurses at Methodist are ready to strike because we firmly believe in patients before profits. Quality patient care begins with safe nurse staffing levels, and the administration of Methodist has shown multiple times they have no interest in ensuring these staffing levels are met. We have been told that our requests are aspirational and cost too much money, even while the CEO of Health Partners is paid $2.4 million. The Methodist nurses know that patient safety relies on nurse staffing levels. As of yesterday, one of our observation units was closed for the day due to only 2 nurses being scheduled. They were trying to require those 2 nurses to take 8 to 10 patients each. We want to make certain our patients get the best care with the best possible outcomes. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mary, I know last time we spoke, you said that you're going to talk when you authorize the strike to decide how long you would strike. Can you talk about why your decision is 3 days and what you're going to do in those 3 days?
First of all, when we make a decision, it's usually, it is the 13 hospitals, and we vote by 2/3. And so we were between a 3 and a 5, and the vote was for 3. And so to honor the process, that is what we came up with. And so our strike will be from 7 a.m. July 12th to September. Yeah, we're going to wait a whole year. No, you can cut that part out. 7 a.m. September 12th through 7 a.m. September 15th. So it will be 3 day shifts, 3 evening shifts, 3 night shifts.
And Mary, I know you guys care a lot about the patients. What's going to happen to them during this time?
That is why we do a 10-day notice. Make no mistake, this is crunch time. We are willing to be, and I anticipate the amount of time that we're going to spend at the table should increase exponentially. They need to see it as the crisis that it is. We've said over and over that this isn't something we do lightly. But we're not going to just sit back and do nothing. We can't. So they do have, like I said, you can walk out on Starbucks and you don't have to give a notice, but it's far different in our profession. So they have 10 days to figure it out.
Mary, the last time we talked, you had said that some of you were going back to the negotiating table as soon as that day when you announced that you were intending to strike. Did you make any progress whatsoever?
None whatsoever, and they didn't acknowledge our vote. They didn't acknowledge they've been very, for want of a better word, arrogant since that time. We got one, Katie, I think is going back now. She's on her way back to the bargaining table. See, we're serious about this, okay? And we have been all along. We're trying to figure out ways. We even had legislation. That's another thing that's different from a decade ago. We even tried the legislature. When a decade ago, the legislature would have never even said, hey, figure it out at the bargaining table. We have done everything. All of our proposals are designed to keep nurses at the bedside, and I cannot reiterate enough, the public health care crisis is on its way here. If 50% of our nurses leave the bedside, we had, and just to give you an example what this looks like, we don't have a representative from Duluth here, but Chris would say there was one weekend just recently up in Duluth that they put out the schedule for the weekend with no nurses scheduled for days, evenings, or nights. For 3 days, they had no nurses scheduled. That meant that they just had to figure it out. Now, people, that's going to be the way of the future. It's mind-boggling when you think about it.
You've been through negotiations before. How is this one different?
This one is different because of the, you know, at the beginning, I tell people that at the beginning of the pandemic, we were there. You know, we were able to man it where we had enough nurses, okay? And then we went through the pandemic. I myself, you know, as you know, worked the COVID ICU at North Memorial from the very beginning. And I would say over 40% of our nurses have left. Kind of at the 2.5-year mark, they just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't blame one single one of them for moving on to something different. You know, and the one thing I will say about the whole pay business, you know, if money was truly our only gain, our only ambition in this whole endeavor, we would all be travel nurses right now. Okay? If that's what we really cared about, we'd all be traveling right now. So.
But Mary, how are these negotiations, the business side of it, how is that different?
The business side of it. Oh, as far as
like going to the table, how has this been different than the times before?
I guess you know, every negotiation starts where they just appear like they don't listen. You know, it usually starts in March, and we usually were able to get it done in June, you know, mid-June. And it was, you know, they kind of half-heartedly listened. But by May, we would usually kick in. We would have negotiation sessions well into the night. You know, they make a big deal about, oh, we're on our 18th day. Well, you know, in the past, by for sure end of April into May, we were staying till 1, 2 in the morning. I don't know about the rest of you, but we all stop at 4:35, you know. And so they would say, and we've been bargaining with our proposals all along, they would say that we're dragging our feet, but we've actually put in half the time that we normally would do. So that's different. And then the fact that we were up, the Metro was up June 1st, and now Duluth was up June 30th. And once July 1st hit, that meant we went from 12,000 nurses to 15,000 nurses. And now we also have Moose Lake, who's been wanting a contract for 2 years. And so they're going to be in on it. And if you guys know where that is, that's 40 miles south of Duluth. A hospital that would potentially pick up the slack when the hospitals in Duluth go on strike. So those are two differences right there. And the biggest thing, I told Attorney General Keith Ellison the other day, I said, here's the thing, if it was just about money, they wouldn't be wasting all this money on travelers, et cetera. It's about control. Control over our schedules, control over our benefits. It is about control, and that is probably the top thing that is different. They're being so obvious about it. They want to treat us like we're, no disrespect to the restaurant industry, but they want to treat us like we're servers that come for the breakfast, go home, and come back for the lunch. Only be there when the patients are there, literally. And that just doesn't work.
Mary, with respect to the proposals, I mean, I'm looking at patients with low profits in front of you, but right now they're reporting no profits, and reporting huge multi-million-dollar losses. And even if you took all the CEO pay and chucked it out, they still have huge multi-million-dollar losses. Is this a good time to be making a big ask when they don't have much money because they might have had in prior negotiations?
All right, I'm trying not to crack up here. I would take that seriously if there wasn't one single hospital system that doesn't have a big, grand building planned. Everything from our hospital, you know, Maple Grove, our non-union hospital, that they want to expand it, to I believe Fairview wants to build a nice 1,000-bed hospital on the East Bank and Alina Surgical Centers. Big, huge hospital of Essentia up in Duluth, and they have the audacity to come to the state to ask for money to help them. And I don't think it's because they don't have the money. They just want the taxpayer to pay for it, which is really ironic because the taxpayer will pay for hospitals that won't have any nurses to nurse, and so when they do go there, they're going to be getting probably debatable care. You can't get care when the nurses aren't there. People come to the hospital for nursing care. So, yeah.
Mary, I'm sorry I might have missed it. Are any of you headed back to the negotiating table
Yeah.
today or within the next 10 days?
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
Oh, within the next 10. Yeah.
Oh, Methodist is? Are you guys?
Alina's on the 9th.
But who's today?
I'm today.
Methodist. Yeah. Healthies?
Healthies. Fairview next Wednesday.
Yeah, we all have dates set up. Some of us have a couple dates set up. We're taking this seriously. Yeah.
Can you characterize the cost of your proposals? I know you have a lot of different hospitals, a lot of different groups, but I mean, as a percentage or just any kind of ballpark figure, that if they say your proposals are unaffordable, can you discuss just how much you think they would actually affect the bottom line, so to speak?
You know, right now, their proposal stands at roughly 4% the first year, 3.5% the second year, 3% the third year. So I don't know if that, that's about what their offer stands for. And they have told us time and time again that that is the total economic package. And so what that means, like at North, where a lot of our nurses, because we were thick in the pandemic from the very beginning, okay? All 4 ICUs at one point were filled with COVID. 3 full med-surg units were filled with COVID. And so our nurses literally burned through their sick leave, either quarantine and things like that. So this is an important proposal for us, is to be able to be able to accrue sick leave faster. And that is going to cost money. See, and I've told them across the table, the percentage that we start with, that we know that we have to literally buy our benefits. You know what I'm saying? And so, and we have a lot of concerns. We have hospitals that are concerned about their insurance being children's, right? Decimated, literally. And all of these various things, they can try to say that it's all that we wanted, and it's not at that number anymore. We wanted 39% all the first year. I don't know how their rhetoric is, but that's not how it is at the bargaining table, and that's not how it is right now. Right now it stands at, they are offering no more than 11% for our whole economic package. And I'm sorry, you might as well buy a bus ticket for all us nurses so we can go work for, I don't know, Target. I think we get a better deal at Target.
They have really good benefits.
Do they have really good benefits? And they have paid family leave there.
Can you characterize what the staffing minimums would look like under what you're proposing? I know staffing issues is a huge one for nurses. I've talked to all over the state.
Yeah.
What would you like to see in place?
Well, okay, I'm going to do 2 examples. We're going to first say the children's example where they had in their, where it's supposed to be 2 babies, 1 baby?
It depends on the acuity of the patient.
Yeah.
In our NICU, if you have a ventilator patient, generally those...
Here, come on, they can't hear you.
Generally, in our neonatal intensive care units, those are the sickest babies that you could ever have, right? Many of those babies should be a one-to-one nurse. So one nurse taking care of that one baby. In the last few months, some of those babies have had one nurse that has 2 other patients or 1 other patient. That's not safe. In the pediatric intensive care unit, those are also children that are on ventilators or very, very sick, the sickest patients of the hospital. They also have had times where that nurse has 2, 3, even 4 patients. That is completely unsafe. There's no way that you can safely provide that care.
And then I would say, and I come from the ICU, where 1 to 2 patients, according to the acuity, is what is reams and reams of research can back this up. And it's becoming the norm for 3 and even 4. And I know for sure up in Duluth, it is 3 is the norm now. And there is evidence that every time you increase the staffing beyond what has been researched as best practice, you start to have adverse events. And let us not forget the article that was out just recently about adverse events rising.
Other questions? Mary, have you thought about, the hospitals kind of have the thought about not agreeing to federal mediation? Are you thinking about bringing in federal mediators to help with negotiations? Why or why not?
Right, it has never been off the table, but a mediator is for when we're getting close to a deal. You know, like one of our nurses said, how is a mediator going to help when all they're hearing no, no, no from one side? So, no, it's not off the table. It just doesn't seem like the time is right. And we've been able to bargain across the table. Now, bringing in a mediator from their standpoint, what does that mean? What does that look like in the past? Oh, that means that they don't have to face us across the table. Okay, and also they've been asking for a mediator from day one, which means they had no interest in hearing our stories of workplace violence, of unsafe staffing. They never wanted to meet us across the table. Is that fair? Yep.
Mary, given that you all are so far apart, it doesn't seem like a 3-day strike may do it. Are you prepared for a protracted strike like there was in 2016?
You know, right now the 3-day, we could very well be, you know, depending on what replacement nurses they get, you know, the 3-day may not be enough. They may lock us out. What, you know, as far as the future goes, we can only hope these 10 days motivate them to take this seriously. Okay? We don't have plans beyond this because we are hoping, that's not saying, we don't have plans beyond this. Okay? And because we are hoping that these 10 days will bring about resolution. Okay? But if it doesn't, we will go out for that 3-day.
Remind me, sorry, remind me because I know it's changed. The percentage for the economic impact that you're asking for, is it still like 30%?
I believe it's down to 30, what is it? 30.75 or something like that, 30, yeah.
If I can just move one more, I mean, we're entering the fall and what could be a surge of COVID again. I don't know who wants to hear that.
Oh, they're going up.
Influencing your thoughts and bargaining that you're going to enter a time when nurses are going to be needed more than ever, and is that going to influence decisions to
Our path is set right now with this press conference. Is there a reason I'm wearing all black? This is a somber day. We can't, if you think we're yay, or, you know, this is yip for us, it's not, okay? We are devastated that we have to go to these extremes. And yes, you're right, COVID is going up. Every day this past weekend that I worked, every day the morning huddle was the numbers had gone up 2 to 3 more. Because we are hoping that these 10 days will bring about resolution. Okay? But if it doesn't, we will go out for that 3-day.
Remind me, sorry, remind me because I know it's changed. The percentage for the economic impact that you're asking for, is it still like 30%?
I believe it's down to 30, what is it? 30.75 or something like that, 30, yeah.
If I can just move one more, I mean, we're entering the fall and what could be a surge of COVID again. I don't know who wants to hear that.
Oh, they're going up.
Influencing your thoughts and bargaining that you're going to enter a time when nurses are going to be needed more than ever, and is that going to influence decisions to
Our path is set right now with this press conference. Is there a reason I'm wearing all black? This is a somber day. We can't, if you think we're yay, or, you know, this is yip for us, it's not, okay? We are devastated that we have to go to these extremes. And yes, you're right, COVID is going up. Every day this past weekend that I worked, every day the morning huddle was the numbers had gone up 2 to 3 more people. So yes, COVID numbers are going up. Are we concerned? Do they need us there? You bet they do. So hospitals, our patients need us, so do something about it.
Everyone good? Thank you.
We're already at the emergency time. Like, we already need
They had that time period where we announced that we had enough
Yeah.
votes to strike. They need to start.
All right.
You're watching Live Now from Fox, everyone, there, as we learned that 15,000 nurses have filed their intent to strike within the next 10 days there. They are very upset about staffing shortages and really trying to pick up the workload for others, as it is causing a lot of strain, definitely on these nurses. 15,000 of them from Minneapolis to Duluth, all coming together there and announcing that intent there to strike. So we'll have more updates for you as that 10-day marker gets closer there, but we will see if the union and the hospitals will come to some sort of negotiations right there. All right, everybody, you are watching Live Now from Fox, always here for you, bringing you the top stories and headlines from across the country. It is Labor Day weekend, and millions are getting ready to travel. We'll have the latest breakdown live from New York in just a moment. We'll take a quick 2-minute break. Stay right here with us as we continue to roll on Live Now from Fox. Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. We appreciate you always joining us here worldwide. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be here with you on this Thursday as we get closer to Labor Day weekend. Millions are set to travel there and enjoy an extended weekend. For the very latest right now, we head out to Fox 5 in New York. Richard Giacobis joining us here live with all of the details. Richard.
You know, I have to tell you, this has been one of the busiest Labor Day weekend travels that I can remember. And when you look around here at LaGuardia Airport, it proves that we're at Terminal B, where there's a bunch of domestic departures and arrivals. And most of the day, it's been a steady flow of people, despite the threat of delays and cancellations, because those we spoke with say they just want to get in one last trip before we say so long to summer. On the unofficial Labor Day weekend getaway day, flights were taking off one after the other at LaGuardia. The good news, none of them, according to the Departure and Arrival Board at Terminal B, were delayed or canceled.
We're getting away with the family, going to the Gators game. Really excited. One last hurrah before the summer ends.
It was just what the Fishman family wanted to hear. These four were about to board their JetBlue flight to Tampa for an end-of-summer vacation.
We've been sitting tight too long with COVID. We want to get away.
The Fishmans and more than 12 million others are expected to jet off from U.S. airports over the holiday weekend. AAA predicts today and tomorrow, along with Monday, to be the busiest travel days.
We are anticipating that it's going to be very busy.
But despite staffing issues causing massive delays and cancellations over the July 4th travel weekend, AAA spokesman Robert Sinclair expects mostly smooth sailing over the next few days. You just have to take his advice.
We tell folks try to schedule the first flight in the morning. Delays and cancellations tend to cascade in the afternoon, particularly so during the summer when you get afternoon thunderstorms that can create problems.
Let's just go for it and hope for the best. Right now, I see the wait's not too bad. Also helps that it's not nighttime, not super early.
Hoping for the best is good, and so far, according to FlightAware, there have been about 2,000 flight delays across the country today. The good news is only about 200 or so cancellations. That's nothing compared to what it was over Memorial Day and July 4th. So it's only getting better. That's the trajectory, and experts predict as we get into the busy holiday travel season that employee staffing at these airlines will really get to where it was pre-COVID, and there should be really no delays and cancellations except for maybe weather. That's the good news. So good luck traveling. Before you know it, we'll be in the holiday season traveling. Right now, we're live at LaGuardia Airport. Richard Giacobas will send it back to you, Mike and Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's always a good sign when you hear that the airports are busy, because that means, you know, everything is getting back to normal there. So we appreciate it, Richard. Thanks so much.
Yes, for sure.
No problem. And we always got you covered right here on Live Now from Fox, everybody. We are going to take another quick 2-minute break. Stay right here with us. More to come on Live Now. We're back here for you on Live Now from Fox, taking you out to Jackson, Mississippi, hearing from the governor there on day 4 of the water crisis that continues, as residents there in Jackson still being told that they, if they do take a shower, that they have to keep their mouth closed. Let's listen right here on Live Now.
Our partnership with both the federal government and the city of Jackson as well. Today, I am announcing the launch of 7 state-run water distribution sites throughout the area impacted by the water crisis. The 7 distribution points will be here at the State Fairgrounds, the Metro Center Mall, Smith Wills Stadium, Thomas Cardozo Middle School, Northwest Jackson Middle School, Hines Community College, Jackson, and Davis Road Park. These sites will offer bottled water, bulk, non-potable water, and hand sanitizer. They will be open from 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. each day until further notice. As you know, these 7 sites will augment the sites that have already been set up by the city. We have been working in coordination with the city and their distribution plans, primarily at fire stations, over the last 48 hours. These sites will augment those sites, but they, as I appreciate it, will continue to be open as well. This has been an extraordinary logistical effort. The President signed the order less than 36 hours ago. We appreciate that. The team behind me, since that time, has secured the necessary resources and coordinated the necessary individuals in order to rally the establishment of these sites. These sites will be well stocked, they will be well staffed, and they will be well prepared to handle the continued emergency of the coming days. Our leaders in emergency management have a wealth of experience to draw from, and we're well prepared to effectively carry out this operation. I am incredibly thankful for the work, the coordination, and the cooperation of everyone that is here today, particularly, of course, MEMA, the Mississippi National Guard, the Mississippi Department of Health, Commissioner Gibson and his team, Commissioner Tyndall and his team at the Department of Public Safety, Russell and the Mississippi Forestry Commission, our partners in Hinds County, as well as the mayor and our partners in the city of Jackson for making these distribution sites possible. There will be 600 National Guard service members have been activated and are working to help manage the distribution of water and other critical resources. I want to personally thank Major General Boyles for his diligent work in making this happen, and all of our National Guard service members for their commitment to serving our state and their commitment for the work that they do in disasters such as this. I'd also like to note, and I would appreciate all of our friends and others in the media to please get this information out. The Mississippi Emergency Management Agency's call center is open for residents affected by this crisis. Folks can get information on all the resources that are available by calling MEMA's Emergency Management Call Center at 1-833-591-6362. Again, that's 1-833-591-6362. The center will be open every day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Additionally, we are continuing to work diligently at the O.B. Curtis Water Treatment Plant to get everyone in Jackson sustainable running water for the long term. As we have said, this is a challenge that many have been dealing with. We are extremely thankful to those operators and those city employees that are in the facility and have been in the facility. And we also welcome the help and support of both state entities as well as our federal partners in that process. To everyone in the city, I know that you're dealing with a profoundly unfair situation. It's frustrating, it's wrong, and it needs to be fixed. My family and I live in the city of Jackson as well. Our water comes from the city's pipelines as well. My core focus is on ensuring the folks around me today have everything they need to distribute water and run the system effectively so that all of us in Jackson can not only have running water but also clean water again. We have formed a strong coalition between city, state, and federal leaders to effectively diagnose what went wrong and to move swiftly to address those issues. We are working on this every day, and I should say, because the plant runs 24/7, we are working on this every night. and we will be transparent, fast-acting, and focused throughout this mission. Now, I would like to take the opportunity to turn this over to Mac for further updates and for guidance on the distribution sites. Mac?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, everybody who's in attendance. We can do a lot of great things at MEMA and mobilize a lot of resources that come in. But the one thing that's paramount, if you look at who's up here right now, this is a partnership. This is everybody that has skin in this game. They're standing right here. So I want to thank the mayor for his team. He's been in constant contact with us at the plant and whatnot. The working situation there is awesome. Met with the Corps of Engineers, who actually showed up at 9 o'clock this morning with their pump assessment teams to look at all parts and pieces that we might need to be able to access, because the Corps of Engineers can move water. We know they can. So bringing them in is a powerful, powerful part of our plan. EPA's on site. We had a conference early this morning at 8 o'clock, nailing down what the work was to do today and then what we're going to do in the following day. So we are going to improve this system over the next coming days. But we're talking about the distribution of water right now. We understand we've got 7 mega sites that are coming in. We really want to get a great big push into to facilitating the distribution of water for non-potable and for potable throughout the city. And we know we're going to leapfrog this. We're going to move on to the next pocket where we might have somebody. So our evaluations are still ongoing to improve the distribution and even put it in smaller sites in other parts of the city. So we're working with the mayor staff and with the Hinds County Emergency Management to identify further pockets that we might have that we need to do. But right now, come on into the big sites, and we're going to put some water in your vehicle and get you moving so you can do the things that you need to do. The governor already talked about those sites. I'm not going to do that, and he actually gave out my number, the 1-888-591-6362 is MEMA. That is our regular number you can call in on, and we'll get you to the office that you need. Had a great conversation with the Corps of Engineers. As we're looking at what we're doing today, I've got a plan for tomorrow and the days after. So the conversation with Corps of Engineers was possible other projects that we go on and we do some resilience and we do some mitigation within the systems that we currently already have. And that goes to include the Commissioner and I talked about it this morning about his ability to produce water on this site. How do we plug that in for a continuity of government situation? So we're doing now, I'm doing 2 days from now, and I'm doing the future as well. And with these partners up here, we're going to come up with a long-term solution that's actually going to raise my capital city, and every citizen here is going to have an opportunity, and they'll know that we're working hard to do what we need to do. I'll stand by for any questions afterwards, but Governor, that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Mac. I appreciate that. At this time, I would like to call on General Bowles to offer remarks on the very quick action that we have taken to call up 600 National Guardsmen to make sure that this distribution works. You've heard me talk over the last 3 days and compare our efforts often with the way in which we responded to the pandemic. Specifically in this instance, it's the way in which our National Guard stepped up and helped provide vaccine distribution in the early days, long before any other state actually chose to do that. And I think there was universal agreement across this state and across this nation that those men and women in uniform stepped up and did that in such a way that could make all of us as Mississippians proud. And I have no doubt that many of the same individuals, in fact, but certainly the same leadership team will ensure that this distribution goes smoothly as well. So, General Bowles.
Thank you, Governor. So, Governor, we appreciate your leadership in bringing us all together. Thank you for doing that, and we value our partnership with our interagency partners and all the other governments, and Mayor, anything we can do to support you, we want to be successful. And thank you for sharing those spots with us so we can get this water distributed as quickly as we can. I am bringing soldiers and airmen in from all over the state to help with this. We've got, as the governor said, 600 men and women who will be on the pod sites helping distribute water. We also have tankers at those sites, so we've got non-potable water that's available for containers that people may want to bring in. I am moving assets all over Jackson to make sure that we will always have water at the site when the customers show up. We learned, Governor, during the COVID response, sort of how to manage traffic at these sites. So today we're going through those exercises, making sure that traffic will flow smoothly and efficiently so we can get people in and get them out with what they need to take back home. Governor, I'll just pause there and wait for any questions if anybody has any. But thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to serve Mississippi.
Thank you, General Boyles. I sincerely appreciate your efforts, and I have the utmost confidence that any kinks that may occur over the next few hours will get worked out very, very quickly, because I have seen them do it time and time again. I received a call, I think before daylight a couple of days ago, from Commissioner Andy Gibson offering here the fairgrounds, which clearly is a prime location for us to coordinate not only this particular briefing, but also coordinate the efforts. Obviously, there aren't a lot of places in the city or in the state or in this country where you can easily go from 0 personnel to close to 700 when you include the National Guard, the Department of Public Safety, City of Jackson Resources, the Forestry Commission, etc. So Commissioner Gibson offered, and it made perfect sense right here in the heart of the capital city to utilize this facility, and I want to turn it over to Commissioner Gibson right now.
Thank you, and on behalf of myself and our fairgrounds staff here at the Department of Agriculture Fairgrounds Division, we want to welcome you to the new Mississippi Trade Mart. Behind me is a mural that was prepared. It's actually a carving of wood that was harvested from all over Mississippi. But what you see in the center is a piece of magnolia wood, symbolizing that we are one Mississippi. And when we gather here today at the fairgrounds, we remember that this facility has been used as emergency response over decades, for decades literally, here in the state of Mississippi, responding to events on the Gulf Coast like Hurricane Katrina, responding to tornado events in North Mississippi, and now we have the privilege to work with the mayor and the citizens of Jackson to help the people right here in the city of Jackson, Mississippi, the people, the families of this city. The fairgrounds is pleased to serve as a state staging area for this operation. I'm grateful to Governor Reeves, his leadership, and this team that is here for what the work they are doing to assemble the necessary resources for this response. I want to mention a few things that the fairgrounds is doing. One of those is, of course, serving as a logistical staging area. The other is being one of the 7 pods for water distribution. I see people already going through the line out here to access that on High Street. And then on the south side of the Coliseum, we are serving as a filling station for the tankers, the National Guard tankers that have been rolling day and night. And since Monday, actually, we have pumped 145,000 gallons of fresh water into tankers that have supplied the state nerve center, IT servers in the Department of Finance and Administration, also healthcare facilities like the Jackson Medical Mall and the State Health Lab. And so we are continuing those operations through our well system that was completed earlier this year. We have the capacity to pump at least 400 gallons per minute out of our well system, and it is pumping right now, and it pumped all night last night. Trucks are rolling in and out 24/7 for these operations, and we look forward to refilling these National Guard tankers in that role. We are honored to be a part of this because in Mississippi, when crisis strikes, we realize that really we are one Mississippi. We are bound together by our common faith, our common belief to love our neighbor as ourselves, to do what we can to help our fellow Mississippians like we would want someone to do to help us. So it is our honor to serve this for the city of Jackson right here in this area. I would mention 2 things. The fairgrounds is up and operating all the time. We are continually operating. We have had only 2 events that we've had to have rescheduled due to this staging area. One is the Paw Patrol event that was scheduled for this weekend. It's been rescheduled for late November. And then the Mississippi Horse Open Show that was to be in the Equine Center is also being rescheduled to a later date. All other events are active and ongoing, and we're actually serving food in our cafe at the Farmers Market for those who are living in Jackson, need something to eat. A restaurant is operational, serving good country cooking, all kind of Mississippi agriculture agriculture. So we thank you for coming. Thank you for your interest, and we look forward to being part of the solution. And Governor, we'll help each and every way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibson. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tyndall. The Department of Public Safety and the Mississippi Highway Patrol and the Capitol Police are coordinating and working with Jackson Police Department to ensure that we provide adequate safety and security at each of these 7 locations, and we will certainly do that. It is never a good time to commit a crime anywhere, but this is a really, really bad time to commit a crime in the city of Jackson, I can assure you, as we have significant additional resources and assets throughout. And I'm going to let Commissioner Tyndall talk about that. John?
Governor, thank you for your leadership, as well as other agency heads and state leaders. This is obviously a big undertaking, but I can tell you over this governor's tenure in office as governor, we've certainly had our share of experiences responding to disasters. For Department of Public Safety standpoint, as well as MHP and the Capitol Police, we're here to ensure that those that are trying to get water can do so in a safe manner, without fear of any sort of crime and any sort of issues or emergencies at the distribution sites. We will have our Special Operations Group of the Mississippi Highway Patrol, uniformed officers located at each distribution site to ensure the smooth operation and safety of all those that arrive. We also have the Capitol Police that have added additional patrols in the area. As of today, we have 16 new Capitol Police officers that will be out assisting in the Capital Improvement District and assisting at these sites. We've been working hand in hand with the Jackson Police Department and the Mayor's Office, with local law enforcement, trying to make sure that these efforts are done on a uniform front in case there is an emergency, that all those involved can respond. So the Department of Public Safety, as always, is here to work with the citizens of the city of Jackson and the state of Mississippi to ensure the safety of all the citizens. As the governor mentioned, it's never a good time to commit a crime. Certainly don't want anybody doing anything like that at this time. It will be met with swift action and response and will not be tolerated. So thank you again to all the partners for your work. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership.
We have often talked about the model that has been set up by the federal government in disasters such as this. It is something that FEMA talks about regularly, which is these disasters are state managed, federally supported, and locally executed. The advantage to the engagement by the state is that we're able to bring in assets and resources that maybe many people in the public don't even know about. And when we started the process of setting up this distribution facility, it became very clear that the involvement of a state agency that most in the public wouldn't think about for that process would be the Forestry Commission. And so I've asked our state forester, Russell Bozeman, to come forward and talk a little bit about the role that his team will be performing here on the fairgrounds. Russell.
Hello, everyone. You're right, Governor. We stay out in the woods as much as possible. A lot, you know, when it comes to water quality, we do that every day. Forests are great filters for water quality. Strangely enough, though, it's our responsibility for wildfire that actually brings us here today. So the vast majority of my team is trained in incident command systems. We assist our fellow states across the nation on large, complex wildfires, and therefore to make sure we're always able to assist these partners up here and work with our responsibilities we have with MEMA. We do have an all hazards incident management team, and that's who's here today. So our incident management team, at MEMA's request, is up here. In fact, for any event that we have that requires us to engage with MEMA, our primary responsibility is the distribution of water, ice, and supplies. So we fit right in today, and it is, as always, a pleasure to participate with this group. this leadership that we're dealing with has always been a very strong supporter of what we do, and we're glad to reciprocate when possible. Definitely glad to be here, Mayor, assisting y'all, and we are always here to help. We actually do a lot with the Urban Forestry Department. So, but you know, right now our primary responsibility for the Mississippi Forestry Commission is get these trucks in. I think there's roughly about 106 ordered the last count that I had. I think we've gotten in around 30. Get them in, get them checked out, and then get them redistributed to our points of distribution. So get it back out to the pods so the public can come in and get access to this water. We are doing our best to herd these cats, and I'll be glad to hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Russell. Appreciate your team for being here. We are, as you can tell, a unified effort. Before I call up the next speaker to the podium, I thought I would tell a brief story. I personally don't get on social media because I don't have time for it, but unfortunately a lot of my friends and supporters do get on social media, and those who have my phone number love to text me and say, can you believe they're saying this, or can you believe they're saying that? I'll give you a little example. Yesterday at our briefing, I mentioned that I had a call with our congressional delegation and that the vast majority of them participated on that call. Well, last night it became very clear and evident that there was some group or some segment of the population in this great country that automatically assumed that because I said the vast majority, that Congressman Thompson was the one that wasn't invited to that particular call. The fact of the matter, however, is that Congressman Thompson was on that call, and one of our other members of Congress is not in the United States of America right now and could not participate. So I tell that story simply to say that those who want to drive division and those who want to try to focus this effort, let me just tell you something. There'll be plenty of time for that in the future, but what we're focused on right now is the immediate recovery from this emergency. That immediate recovery includes the work that is being done at O.B. Curtis, where we had our press briefing 2 days ago. At O.B. Curtis, we have a unified command center. The one group that is not here with us today is the State Department of Health. As you know, Jim Craig and his team have been with us at every press briefing that we've had. The reason they're not here today is because their time, in my opinion, is better served at O.B. Curtis than it would be down here, and I personally encourage them to stay at O.B. Curtis because at our Incident Command Center, MAC has a team member there with the Emergency Management Agency. The City of Jackson has their team there at the Incident Command Center, and the State Department of Health has their team at the Incident Command Center. But today's briefing is not only about that effort that is ongoing at the O.B. Curtis facility and working in conjunction with both fuel and other areas. In addition to that, today is about the distribution of both potable and non-potable water. And that is something that I think we can hopefully all admit that everybody in Mississippi has a vested interest in ensuring that the people in the city of Jackson have access to both of those. And we're going to do everything in our power, everything in our might to make sure that that is available. So at this time, I'd ask Mayor Lumumba to come forward and make some remarks.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being present for this very critical briefing. First and foremost, I'd start where the governor left off. I believe that my representation here is a symbol of the unity that is taking place, a symbol of the coalition that is working arm in arm to ensure that we keep the most primary focus on the residents of Jackson. As the governor said, there may become a time where certain other questions come forward, but right now what we are focused on is this unified effort and resolving this challenge for the residents of Jackson. I joke with the governor that our good friend Marshall Ramsey put together a cartoon that showed that we were speed dating. I just want the governor to be aware that he is actually buying the dinner. But, you know, more importantly, I feel the same way today that I felt at the time that Mr. McCraney, along with Jim Craig, joined me at the office to share what the unified effort would be. I want to assure you that at O.B. Curtis, The hardworking men and women that are at that facility have reported that things are going well, that it is seamless. No one is stepping on another person's toes. And in fact, I do want to report the most recent update that I shared from those at the Incident Command Center today, and that is that we have made some positive gains within the system. They are encouraged. There has been the installation of an additional pump that helps with the production of water coming in. They have identified the balance of what crew is there at certain hours, and all of that is going to serve towards the improvement in the system. Right now, I want to speak to our residents. We understand your frustration. We understand your impatience with this challenge, and all of that is warranted. I just want to assure you that you have a unified front at this hour, at this time, endeavoring to fix it and not only sustain, not only work to ensure water reliability in the near future, but for the very distant future as well. I want to thank not only this team, but the team that you do not see in front of you, those at OB Curtis, not only those within the Incident Command, but the hardworking men and women of the Water Department. I want to thank our Constituent Service Division. I want to thank our firefighters who have been helping to provide water, our Jackson Police Department. Any and every person that has had a hand in this effort, I want to thank them. We have volunteer groups. I've received calls from all over the nation of different cities and corporations that want to support the effort here in Jackson, Mississippi, and that warms my heart. Those that live in the Jackson community who have stepped up to support their neighbors, I want to thank them as well. And I want to thank both the president who gave me, endeavored to call me yesterday, along with the vice president, to ensure that from every level we have that support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With that, I will turn it over to questions. We'll start with Ross. Yeah, so what I would tell you, Ross, is that I didn't begin with the update on OB Curtis for a number of reasons. The primary reason is because it's only, we started at 11:30 this morning. We gave an update at 4:30 yesterday. I would like to get through the full day to kind of see where we are before we make remarks as to how today went. As you'll recall, Tuesday was a day that was much better than we anticipated. Yesterday was a day that started off much worse than we had hoped, and this whole process is going to be like that. There's going to be ups and downs throughout the process. And the other reason that we started with today talking about the distribution side, because when it comes to life safety of individuals, particularly those that don't have clean drinking water, the single most important thing that we can do is to make sure that there is the opportunity for clean drinking water. We do have reason for optimism, as the mayor mentioned, that we have had a good overnight as well as a good morning. My understanding that the PSI levels that had gotten down to around 42 yesterday were back up near 80 mid-morning today. The pump that was installed yesterday, and kudos to those men and women that were engaged and involved, certainly is playing a role in that. But again, there are a lot of moving parts inside that particular facility. The single most important thing, in my opinion, and this isn't technical or anything else, but when the team talked with the mayor on Monday, I'll just tell you what my greatest fear was, and the greatest risk at that time in my mind was for there not to be 100% cooperation, not at our level, but at 100% cooperation at the on the ground at OB Curtis. And while I still believe that I was correct in saying that that was the greatest risk, that has not been a problem at all. There has been nothing but 100% cooperation and coordination with the employees that work there, the ones who actually have the institutional knowledge. And it's why I have tried at every press briefing that I have given to commend those individuals that work at OB Curtis, because the reality is whatever progress has been made and whatever progress will be made in the days and hours and minutes before us, a big reason for that progress is because of the work of the individuals that are there and the individuals that have been working there for a long time. Clearly, the expertise that has been brought in from the State Department of Health and others has allowed for additional people to look and to make an analysis and figure out some of the additional things that can be made. As we had said, and by the way, what I've learned in this process is we're 100% sure of something on one day, and then we find out the next day it may not be 100% accurate, although we were 100% sure of it the day before. It's just the nature of the kind of plant that we are dealing with at OB Curtis. But just to kind of put things in perspective, we believe that the additional pump that was installed yesterday would lead to the ability to push out approximately 4 million gallons of water. That whole facility is, if working perfectly, would be able to push out about 50 million gallons a day. It has probably, over the last several weeks, operated less than 50 million gallons a day, to say the least. But again, that 4 million gallons a day certainly is significant and is important. But again, just so everyone knows, we have more work to do. We mentioned yesterday at the 4:30 briefing that because of the less than ideal start to yesterday, that the water pressures throughout the city were probably in the late afternoon and into the early evening were going to be less than ideal. As I appreciate it, as we speak to you today here at noon, those pressures are probably improving. The gauges inside the tanks are certainly improving because we are now, the plant is back operating at a much higher level than it has been. So, sure. Do not drink the water. Do not use the water to brush your teeth. If you're going to drink the water, please boil it. There has been a boil water notice on in the city for quite some time. That has not changed. The State Department of Health makes those decisions, not me. But I have not been told by anyone that it is okay to drink the water as it is coming out of the pumps. I do think that as again, you've heard me talk about quantity and quality of water. I do believe that over time, as we get the quantity piece working, the biggest risk that I was concerned about and earlier in the week is if we can't produce adequate quantity of water, then the ability to flush toilets, the ability to offer water to fight fires, etc., becomes a major issue. But it's also fair to say that you need adequate quantity that is clean water going through the pumps to ensure.
All right, so we are following a number of top stories right now across the country, as you can see on your screen, including President Biden, who will soon be on his way to Philadelphia to address the nation. He has just gotten off of Air Force One. Right now, he is at Joint Base Andrews. You can see he is alongside First Lady Jill Biden. And tonight, again, he will be addressing the nation. He is expected to speak on the soul of the nation, again, in Pennsylvania from Independence Hall. That's where the Constitution was signed, the country's Constitution. And, of course, we will be bringing you that speech, the primetime address from President Biden here on Live Now from Fox. That is set for 7:30 Eastern. And you see him there with the First Lady, walking up the steps of Air Force One as they head to Philadelphia. And a quick wave there by the President and the First Lady. And this will be a quick flight. And we do have a live image as well from where that speech will be taking place. Again, it will be taking place at Independence Hall. And you can see the crew there setting up from the podium. It appears to be an outdoor location that the president will be making this speech from outside of Independence Hall. And of course, as I mentioned, we will be bringing you live coverage of the president's address. This will be at 7:30 Eastern. And before that, we will bring you analysis, a preview of the president's speech 30 minutes before that. So we're going to take a short break here on Live Now from Fox. We'll have more top stories from across the country in just 2 minutes.
And keep up all the free bucks with
Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. Thanks so much for joining us. As mentioned before the break, we are following a number of top stories happening right now, including Republicans are having an event as we speak. They are having the Take Back the House event. This is happening right now in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Let's go ahead and listen in.
House. Kevin McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Jim, and more importantly, thank you. It's great to be in Pennsylvania. We're going to win this race. And this isn't going to be the only race we win. But before I begin, I want to thank Donnie for hosting us today with what an unbelievable, incredible shop and for all the employees and what it does. By the time this year is over, I will have visited almost 50 states, met with people like you in coffee shops, diners, VFW halls, community centers, and like machine shops just here at Don's. Over the past month alone, I have traveled to more than 20 states and met with over 100 Republican candidates and members and thousands of their constituents. So tonight, I want to share with you what I heard from Americans across this country. What is clear to me and clear to you is that Washington and the White House aren't listening. They just don't get it. You have never been more worried, more alarmed by the direction of our country. Yet they tell you everything is fine. You worry that your children will have less opportunity than you did. Yet they tell you things are looking up. You fear that America is becoming poorer, less safe, less respected, and less free by the day. Yet they tell you the border is safe and America is secure. The White House says inflation is transitory. Deficits don't matter. And the spike in crime is just a bump in the road. Yet you know that doesn't add up. That's where we're different. I don't dismiss your fears. I share them. And I, along with every Republican running for Congress this year, share your unwavering conviction that we must change direction in Washington before it is too late. The American experiment and the good people who believe in it have not said their last word. The electric cord of liberty still sparks in our hearts. The spirit of the Pilgrims, the Patriots, and the pioneers still inspire our souls. Our best days are ahead of us, not behind us. Our nation can flourish again, and under a new historic Republican majority, it will. For the past 2 years have been a time of trial for Americans everywhere. Never in modern times has an administration promised more and delivered less. And they have no one to blame but themselves. In the past 2 years, Joe Biden has launched an assault on the soul of America, on its people, on its laws, on its most sacred values. He has launched an assault on our democracy. His policies have severely wounded America's soul, diminished America's spirit, and betrayed America's trust. For the past 19 months, Democrats have had total control in Washington. They control the House. They control the Senate. They control the White House. They have all the levers of power. So let me ask you this. How have they done? Democrats control every committee in Congress, responsible for our nation's safety, our prosperity, our education, and our government oversight. They are in charge of every federal agency responsible for our law enforcement, for drug enforcement, for our homeland security, for our border security. They are responsible for our food supply, our energy supply, our public health, our public education, our federal spending, our federal borrowing, and even our foreign affairs. So let me ask you again, how have they done? Are you better off? What has 2 years of one-party Democrat rule in Washington given us? Now let me state the obvious. Our economy is now in a recession. Here are the facts. Fact, our supply chains are collapsing. Our transportation system is completely dysfunctional. Air travel has never been more unpredictable. Fact, families go to the grocery store to find empty shelves. Necessities like baby formula have been impossible to find, which means many children can't get the nutrition that they need. If you can find what you need at the store, it costs more, a lot more. Food prices are up more than 13%, the highest increase ever. We're told again and again by Washington that it's all temporary. The historic spending binge of Joe Biden and his Democrat Congress has brought the greatest inflation crisis to this nation in generations. Democrats spent your money on wasteful projects, including millions on ski resorts and luxury hotels, and even spending $1 billion of hardworking taxpayer money on stimulus checks to violent criminals in prison. Yes, and they even sent one to the Boston bomber. This has only driven inflation higher. Here's what it means to the American people. For senior citizens, a lifetime of savings is being wiped out. Their 401ks are now 201ks. For our mid-career workers, wages are being ravaged. Young people cannot afford rent, not even to mention to buy. Mortgages are now out of reach. Families are barely able to make ends meet. Electricity and energy costs, they are consuming household budgets. Citizens are forced to make agonizing choices every single day just to pay the bills. You know, more than 20 million American households, that's about 1 in every 6 families, have fallen behind on their utility bills. The amount they owe has doubled since the beginning of the pandemic, and winter is coming. Fact, gas prices are 60% higher than what Joe Biden took office. He inherited energy independence from President Trump, but is now traveling the world begging foreign countries for energy to power our country. We have God-given American-made energy we need right here, right now. But Joe Biden has locked it away and raised the price of gas. Fact, real income. What you take home after inflation and taxes is lower now than when Joe Biden took office. Let me ask everyone this question. How many of you can afford to give up 1 month of your income? I bet not many. But if you've had a constant salary for the past year, you've had more than 1 month of your income taken away. Millions of Americans are falling backwards into poverty, not making progress. And the hardship does not end there. Because of the extreme soft-on-crime policies of Joe Biden and the defund police Democrat Party, our communities haven't been this dangerous in decades. You want the facts? Last year was the deadliest year in America in 20 years. That includes attacks on our police officers. And this year is no better. Democrat prosecutors and Democrat politicians have declared war on public safety. At our southern border, our safety isn't just at risk. Our national security has been compromised. Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrat Congress have created the worst illegal immigration crisis in all the history of our country. They eliminated every successful policy put in place during the Trump administration and adopted a policy of releasing illegal immigrants by the millions into the United States. Our border is now wide open. Last fiscal year under Biden, there were nearly 1.5 million apprehensions in our southern border. Fact, that is a record. This year, Biden has already broken last year's record. Almost 2 million illegal immigrants were apprehended. That includes 66.
All right, so we're following a lot of news right now, including the heat wave in California. After the break, we will bring you a live report from a Fox 11 reporter. That's up next.
Yeah, I remember Fox did. Yeah. That's why Fox. That's why LA's doing this 3 o'clock. Yeah, no, but that's why I reached out right when you said that. I was like, oh.
Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. Tens of thousands of people in Southern California may lose power this weekend because of scheduled outages that could leave some people in the dark during one of the hottest heat waves of the year. For more on this extreme heat, we're joined by Fox 11's Phil Schuman in Los Angeles, where it's nearing triple-digit temperatures already. Phil, how are people dealing with this level of heat right now?
Well, it's difficult. We're used to the hot weather, of course, here in Southern California. The average temperature this time of the year is about 95. But we're talking about triple-digit temperatures for a number of days. So there's what's called flex alerts, where the utilities are telling us not to use heavy appliances between the hours of 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. Communities have opened up cooling centers. You're familiar with those. Community centers, libraries, other facilities where people can come and cool off and get cold water and other types of snacks. But here in the small community of Southgate, something a little bit unusual, Shirley, one of the giant utilities, Southern California Edison, has scheduled power interruptions for maintenance work that apparently they're unwilling or unable to postpone, even though this heat is at dangerously high levels. Stay out of the midday sun. Today, that's a bit of a challenge, especially if you live at Southern and Bowman in Southgate.
It's very hot in the house. Even with the doors open, it's very, very hot. Yeah, it's too hot.
Previously scheduled maintenance means the Lopez house and about 40 others without power. Teresa Lopez, nice enough to let us into her family's home 1 p.m. The fan's not working, of course, but the thermometer works fine, 95 degrees. Not great timing for them to have to do these repairs, huh?
No, it's not at all.
Again, this was planned. Residents notified via this letter. It says, we understand it can be an inconvenience.
Better believe.
That's nice of them. In fact, similar repair work is planned in other neighborhoods. Southern California Edison telling us after we did a similar story, we are reevaluating the timing of the shutdowns, but did not tell Fox 11 if any scheduled outages will be postponed. What's it like without the power?
We got a generator going over in the back just to keep the refrigerators going, and that's it. We can't see no TV because Spectrum is off.
So the Lopez's new generator will keep the food from spoiling, while they and the rest of the family is on this street, bake.
The last time that they turned the power off on us, it was from 9 till 5, but it ended up being from 9 in the morning till about 11 or 12 at night. So they pulled the telephone pole out, and they got it in the street, so no way they're going to be through at 5 o'clock tonight.
So what are you going to do?
Go to sleep.
So Shirley, as we've been reporting, this heat wave, unprecedented really in its duration, expected to last well into next week, of course covering the 3-day Labor Day holiday. So many people like to seek relief at the coast and the beautiful beaches in Southern California lakes. but even those are hot. We were up in Lake Arrowhead, about 2 hours north of Los Angeles yesterday, and temperatures there were still in the 90s. So people really have to take this seriously. Heat stroke is a very serious and potentially deadly problem if you overdo it in this kind of heat. Again, right now in Southgate, we're in the 90s. Shirley?
And Phil, just a couple of questions for you here. Why would the energy companies schedule these outages during times of the year that are typically very hot?
Well, that's the question we asked them, and their basic response was that because of personnel and equipment issues, that these outages are scheduled weeks in advance, and we don't really know the weather. Well, you know, we have a meteorologist, you have a meteorologist. You know, this heat wave was forecast, this serious excessive heat warning was forecast days in advance, so it's not unreasonable to expect a company, even a large company, would be able to adjust their maintenance schedules, but apparently they did not do that. But as you heard, they're now reevaluating the whole process.
And will these outages be staggered at all?
Well, they are staggered. This one is in a relatively small area of Southgate. We did one yesterday that was far from here in Santa Monica. So they don't involve huge numbers of people. Again, we're talking about in the dozens of homes on these individual outages. But, you know, that's small consolation if you happen to be on the street without power, right?
All right, Phil, thanks so much for bringing us that update live from Los Angeles regarding the heat wave in California.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a short break here on Live Now from Fox. We'll have more top stories in just 2 minutes. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. We're hearing from Republicans. They are holding an event in Pennsylvania. It's called Take the House Back.
His policies have severely wounded America's soul, diminished America's spirit, and betrayed America's trust. For the past 19 months, Democrats have had total control in Washington. They control the House. They control the Senate. They control the White House. They have all the levers of power. So let me ask you this. How have they done? Democrats control every committee in Congress, responsible for our nation's safety, our prosperity, our education, and our government oversight. They are in charge of every federal agency responsible for our law enforcement, for drug enforcement, for our homeland security, for our border security. They're responsible for our food supply, our energy supply, our public health, our public education, our federal spending, our federal borrowing, and even our foreign affairs. So let me ask you again, how have they done? Are you better off? What has 2 years of one-party Democrat rule in Washington given us? Now let me state the obvious. Our economy is now in a recession. Here are the facts. Fact, our supply chains are collapsing. Our transportation system is completely dysfunctional. Air travel has never been more unpredictable. Fact, families go to the grocery store to find empty shelves. Necessities like baby formula have been impossible to find, which means many children can't get the nutrition that they need. If you can find what you need at the store, it costs more, a lot more. Food prices are up more than 13%, the highest increase ever. We're told again and again by Washington that it's all temporary. The historic spending binge of Joe Biden and his Democrat Congress has brought the greatest inflation crisis to this nation in generations. Democrats spent your money on wasteful projects, including millions on ski resorts and luxury hotels, and even spending $1 billion of hardworking taxpayer money on stimulus checks to violent criminals in prison. Yes, and they even sent one to the Boston bomber. This has only driven inflation higher. Here's what it means to the American people. For senior citizens, a lifetime of savings is being wiped out. Their 401ks are now 201ks. For our mid-career workers, wages are being ravaged. Young people cannot afford rent, not even to mention to buy. Mortgages are now out of reach. Families are barely able to make ends meet. Electricity and energy costs, they are consuming household budgets. Citizens are forced to make agonizing choices every single day just to pay the bills. You know, more than 20 million American households, that's about 1 in every 6 families, have fallen behind on their utility bills. The amount they owe has doubled since the beginning of the pandemic, and winter is coming. Fact, gas prices are 60% higher than what Joe Biden took office. He inherited energy independence from President Trump, but is now traveling the world begging foreign countries for energy to power our country. We have God-given American-made energy we need right here, right now. But Joe Biden has locked it away and raised the price of gas. Fact, real income. What you take home after inflation and taxes is lower now than when Joe Biden took office. Let me ask everyone this question. How many of you can afford to give up 1 month of your income? I bet not many. But if you've had a constant salary for the past year, you've had more than 1 month of your income taken away. Millions of Americans are falling backwards into poverty, not making progress. And the hardship does not end there. Because of the extreme soft-on-crime policies of Joe Biden and the defund police Democrat Party, Our communities haven't been this dangerous in decades. You want the facts? Last year was the deadliest year in America in 20 years. That includes attacks on our police officers. And this year is no better. Democrat prosecutors and Democrat politicians have declared war on public safety. At our southern border, our safety isn't just at risk. Our national security has been compromised. Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrat Congress have created the worst illegal immigration crisis in all the history of our country. They eliminated every successful policy put in place during the Trump administration and adopted a policy of releasing illegal immigrants by the millions into the United States. Our border is now wide open. Last fiscal year under Biden, there were nearly 1.5 million apprehensions in our southern border. Fact, that is a record. This year, Biden has already broken last year's record. Almost 2 million illegal immigrants were apprehended. That includes 66 individuals on the terrorist watch list. You have to ask this question. Why are those on a terrorist watch list coming to America, and what do they have planned for us? But it doesn't include the over 500,000 gotaways, or the countless more unknown gotaways slipping and completely undetected as our border agents are pulled off the line. Fact, the number of illegal immigrants who've crossed our border under Biden easily exceeds the population of dozens of states. Think about what this means for our healthcare system, our hospital system, our education system. And think about what a wide open border had meant for the lives of younger Americans. Criminal cartels are now in full control of our southern border. They decide who and what comes into our country. And that means record amounts of drugs flooding into our cities and towns. Every American city is now a border city. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. Fact, Biden's open border policies are killing Americans. Fentanyl is poisoning and killing 300 Americans every single day. That is equivalent to a full airplane crash every single day in our country. Why is the White House not treating this like the crisis it is? Speaking of younger Americans, our children are suffering as a result of Democrat school shutdowns. In fact, according to a national test results just released today, the pandemic has now erased 20 years of progress in reading and math proficiency. It is no wonder only 28% of Americans have trust in our public schools. And in a giant payoff to our education universities that charge more but deliver less value, Biden unilaterally bailed out high-paid, white-collar workers by transferring $1 trillion in student loan. That debt is now being paid by either...
All right, coming up next here on Live Now from Fox, we'll have a live report on ways that travelers stuck at the airport can apply to get refunds. That's up next in just 2 minutes. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. Just in time for the Labor Day weekend, there's a new way to keep airlines accountable when they cancel or delay your flight. Starting today, there's a federal customer service site you can use to find everything you're entitled to if you get stuck at the airport. Fox's Stephen Goen joins us live at Cleveland's Hopkins Airport with more on this. Hey, Steve, what can you tell us about this?
Well, this is something people have been asking for a long time. You know, airline travel complaints have been going on all summer long, and we've all been there, wondering what to do when our travel plans change. It's often difficult to navigate those customer service pages, those rebooking sites, but now officials with the Department of Transportation say it doesn't have to be anymore. And calls to improve customer service. Airlines are promising to do better when disruptions occur under new pressure from the DOT.
Now airlines are committing in black and white to provide consumers with all these protections and rights.
The simplified customer service policies of 10 major carriers are now featured on this Department of Transportation dashboard launched Thursday morning. The site allows travelers to research and compare the accommodations they can expect if a flight is delayed or canceled for something within an airline's control, like a mechanical or staffing problem.
And those plans are legally enforceable. Now, I think that made a lot of airlines go and really think deeply about what they were prepared to commit to in writing.
And officials say significant changes have been made because of the dashboard's rollout, with more carriers now guaranteeing meal and hotel vouchers, for example. It comes as travelers are demanding a better experience before Labor Day, with air travel complaints up 270% in June compared to before the pandemic.
You can't always avoid delays and cancellations, but I think the goal of all of us is to bring that number down, to make it a rarer occurrence for the traveling public.
Now people are going to start using this dashboard this weekend when they travel for Labor Day. 12.7 million people are expected to fly, and most of that travel will happen on Friday. Along with this new tool, the Department of Transportation says they continue to work with airlines to prevent delays and cancellations from happening in the first place by focusing on scheduling and staffing. Back to you.
All right, Stephen, thanks so much for joining us and for bringing us that report. All right, please stick around. We'll have more top stories from across the country after this break. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. Thanks so much for joining us on this Thursday evening. We're hearing from NASA scientists on their Artemis launch to the moon. It was initially scheduled for Monday morning, but has been rescheduled for Saturday. Here's what they had to say just moments ago regarding this major mission to the moon.
Currently targeted for Saturday, September 3rd at 2:17 p.m. with a 2-hour launch window. Joining us here at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, we have several guests who will give us an update on the preparations and overall status. We have Mike Serafin, Artemis 1 Mission Manager, John Honeycutt, SLS Program Manager, John Blevins, SLS Chief Engineer, Charlie Blackwell Thompson, Artemis Launch Director, and Melody Levin, Weather Officer with the Space Launch Delta 45th. We'll start with a few comments from our guests, and then we'll take questions. For those of you joining on the phone, you can press *1 to be entered into the question queue. And I will also note we do want to keep our briefing to an hour today to give our guests some much-needed rest. So with that, Mike, let's start with you.
Okay, well, good afternoon, and thank you for continuing to follow the Artemis 1 mission. If you recall, 2 days ago, we had a scrub following the August 29th launch attempt, and we needed a little bit of time to assess our risk posture headed into a subsequent launch attempt. And we reviewed that today as a mission management team. A little bit of time helped us work through all of the information that we gathered from the first launch attempt. And we worked through a number of issues, and we discussed our risk acceptance rationale for a subsequent launch attempt. If you recall from our prior attempt, we had the tail service mast umbilical leak. We had a hydrogen leak in the tail service mast umbilical. Coming out of the last launch attempt, we met and agreed to do some work out at the launch pad. That work has been completed. We had an issue with the core stage intertank vent valve. That has checked out, and we do not consider that to be an issue. We also had an issue confirming that we were able to thermally condition all of the core stage engines within the required temperature limits as part of what we call the engine bleed. And we worked through that today. And then near the end of the launch attempt, we saw some cracks in the foam on the thermal protection system on the core stage at the intertank flange, and we reviewed that issue today. There was some incremental risk acceptance. As a mission management team, it is our role to review risk acceptance and then the flight readiness rationale. And then we also have requirements change authority following the agency flight readiness review, and we review any changes from the previously accepted risk baseline that we had at the agency FRR. And we did that today. Only 2 of those items required some incremental risk acceptance, and that was the thermal conditioning of the engines associated with the engine bleed, and then the core stage thermal protection system, the crack that we saw, specifically what is termed crack number 2 at the intertank flange, just due to the potential for debris transport. And then contact with the booster SEP motor. It's a low likelihood occurrence, but it is something that we considered an acceptable risk. So we reviewed our risk acceptance rationale and our overall risk posture, and we are setting up for a launch attempt on September the 3rd, Saturday, and we're comfortable with our flight rationale and risk acceptance there. In addition to that, we did have some late analysis come in associated with an off-nominal performance scenario where if we have, and we're not planning on this, but should we have a underspeed at the completion of the translunar injection maneuver, it shows that our trajectory would put us into what we call an eclipse violation, which is a power production issue for the Orion spacecraft. So as a result of that, it is specific to the September 4th launch opportunity. We agreed to take that off the plate. So we are, again, proceeding into our Saturday launch attempt. We're comfortable with our risk posture. That said, there's no guarantee that we're going to get off on Saturday, but we're going to try. And the technical teams have put in a tremendous amount of work in a very short amount of time to get us here. And again, thanks to the work and the effort that they've put in. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Rachel.
Okay. John Honeycutt.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I think when I talked day before yesterday, I mentioned that we had a lot of data to go look at, and so we had come out of the first launch attempt. We were unsuccessful on gathering the data that we wanted to gather for that what we call the bleed kickstart. The team has done a tremendous amount of work starting right after the launch, even up until this morning and to the noon hour, leading us into the MMT meeting. What I would tell you is they just did an outstanding job nailing it flat, and we'll share some more of those technical details. But at a high level, we have convinced ourselves without a shadow of a doubt that we have good quality liquid hydrogen going through the engines, and there's no fuzz on that. We've also through the course of analyzing the data, looked at 5 additional measurements that we can look at to assure ourselves that we are getting that quality data, and that's on the engine. That's on the engine side, and then on the core stage side, we were able to go back and verify that the core stage is providing the amount of hydrogen and the quality of hydrogen to all 4 engines. And so I'll turn it, I say Dr. Blevins and his technical team just did an outstanding job working through that, and we'll share some of those details, I'm sure, as we get to the questions.
Okay. John Blevins.
Yeah, I'll just add that we do have an outstanding team, and they did look at the data. We had some things we were looking for in launch attempt 1 that were combined with what we expected to do in a wet dress, and so we had some sensors that didn't tell us what we thought we would do, and we did the right thing by standing down with that uncertainty on Monday. But we have confirmed that we did have good flow through those engines. We know we can chill those engines. We're ready to proceed that way to launch. The SLS team does a lot of other things, and as Mike mentioned, we brought some other things. We inspect the vehicle. We brought the concerns we had over any TPS as minimal as they are forward, and we've analyzed, and the teams are ready to support launch attempts on Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Charlie?
Well, good evening, everyone. It's great to be back here talking to you about our preparations for Launch Countdown. I think we met and talked just a couple days ago, and when we had our last press conference on Tuesday, we had finished up our safing and securing out at the pad, and we were getting ready to send the access stand out so that we could begin work on the LH2 TSMU purge can, where we detected that leak during our tanking operations. That work is all behind us. We finished up the work. We were able to find what we believe is the source of the leak and correct that. And that purge can's been put back together. We have leak tested it at ambient conditions and also done some flow-through tests with our HAZ gas system, and we believe we're in a good configuration for the next loading attempt. We also went back based on what we saw during the, and working with John's team, looking at any countdown enhancements that we might need to make. We have made a couple of changes as we prepare for this next loading operation. And really what that means is that we're going to start our LH2 chill down, the facility side of the chill down, right around the same time that we begin our LOX chill down. So that'll allow us to begin that kickstart bleed a little bit earlier. and we'll pick up that kickstart because I know I'll probably get a question about when that is, and we'll start that just about 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. So we've made a couple of changes to the countdown. Our teams have been very busy in Firing Room 3 running against the model. We finished up 2 days of that testing to make sure that we had our.
All right, so we just want to bring you some live images here of President Biden and the First Lady. They have touched down in Philadelphia. Again, this is for the president's primetime address that will happen shortly. He is there alongside other Pennsylvania officials, the governor and also the mayor of Philadelphia. They are welcoming him there. And again, the president will be making his address from Independence Hall. That's where the country's constitution was signed. And again, we will be bringing you this live address here on LiveNOW from Fox at 8 p.m. Eastern. And of course, analysis before and after that speech. And he is expected to speak on the soul of the nation. All right, so we want to take you back live into the NASA briefing on the Artemis launch. They mentioned that for right now, it is scheduled for Saturday morning.
Earlier in the week, you gave an assessment that there was a 1 in 125 risk of loss of Orion based on all phases of flight. Now you've added 2 incremental risk acceptances to the mix, the foam and then the engine conditioning. Do you have an updated number, and if so, what is it?
We don't have an updated number. What I would say is there was no appreciable increase in risk. There was a delta risk acceptance because we know we have a crack in the foam. We have a nonconformance at the intertank flange area. We know its location. We know the approximate size, and there's a small likelihood that it could be liberated during launch, follow a very specific trajectory, and hit one specific location on a booster that could cause a problem. The likelihood of that is very low. In addition to that, as we talked with the engine bleed, the thermal conditioning, it really comes down to the fact that we haven't demonstrated it previously. We have a high confidence that we can get through this, given the indications that Dr. Blevins and John Honeycutt talked earlier. The team has more insight given where we are. We've trained it. We have a more robust plan than we had going into the launch attempt on the 29th. In terms of what that means to 1 in 125, does it change that number? Probably if you go way out in terms of decimal points, but there's no appreciable increase in risk. But we do talk about those types of things to ensure that we understand exactly what we're getting ourselves into before we commit the vehicle to flight.
And next we'll go with Kenneth Chang, and then we'll take a few more from the phone.
Hi, Ken Chang from New York Times for John Honeycutt or John Blevins. Could you explain in a little more detail what was the issue with the vent valve on Monday and how you're confident it's not an issue going forward? Thank you.
Yeah, so we did not have an issue with the vent valve. The vent valve is in the system where we had the leak. So the vent valve is inside of the inner tank. It goes to the inner tank structure, and then there's an umbilical there that vents out to the ground. And so the team saw the leak there. So it's probably better for Charlie to answer that one.
Yeah, so I think John described it really well. So this is part of the hydrogen tank vent system. Goes out the umbilical arm, very similar to when we talk about the TSMU, right? There's a ground side and a flight side plate there, and the leak that we picked up was in that particular cavity. What we believe happened is as we have seen with QDs or quick disconnects before, is when you change the environment on them very rapidly, sometimes you will see a shift in the seal. That's actually one of our troubleshooting steps that we do when we see a leak. Is we'll let the QD warm up, and then we will allow flow back across it to see if we can get it to seat. So what had happened in the particular situation that we saw with that is we had gone all the way through our loading. Everything was fine. We had nominal performance in that QD cavity, no issues at all. But when we got into the troubleshooting of the bleed issue, that QD warmed up. We had not had, we'd had the vent valve closed, so you're not really venting through that area, and you got it warmed up for quite an amount of time. And then when we opened it and we exposed it to a very rapid change in environment, both temperature and pressure, that's when we picked up the leak there. And as a matter of course, as we went through the drain operations a little bit later, and you saw, the QD chill down, you actually saw nominal, the leak kind of sealed itself. So that's why we have confidence going into our next tanking operation. Again, we've seen this in the past where you've had rapid change in temperature and pressure. Sometimes you'll see some change in the seal, and that's what we believe caused the issue that we had on our launch temp 1.
Okay, we'll take a few from the phone. We'll go to Marina Corin with The Atlantic.
Hi, I'm Marina Corin with The Atlantic. A question for Mike Serafin. A few days before the first launch attempt, you said that if you couldn't successfully demonstrate the thermal conditioning of the engines, you wouldn't be launching that day. Now that you're confident that you'll be able to do that on Saturday, what else is on the table, something of a similar nature that you haven't tested yet that you can say today could be another showstopper?
Okay, so we've been listening into this briefing by NASA officials on the rescheduled Artemis 1 launch that's going to be taking place on Saturday. We'll have special live coverage of that as well. Reporters asking a lot of questions about this particular relaunch, if they have gotten everything fixed, as to why it had to be scrubbed on Monday, and so on and so forth. So we want to just go to a quick commercial break. Before we do that, we just want to alert you to something that we are following in Orlando, I should say. You can see this flipped plane at the Orlando Executive Airport. We're also learning that at least one person has reportedly died after a pair of planes flipped there at Orlando's Executive Airport. So we just got some of these scenes here. You can see the plane completely flipped over. So according to Fox 35 in Orlando, they spoke with a spokesperson for the airport saying that one of the planes was unoccupied while the other plane was occupied. It's unclear, though, how many people were on board that particular plane. So this is all as a result of severe weather that was moving through this area of Florida, passing over the area around 5:30 p.m. local time, Eastern time. And so you can see there a lot of emergency management officials on the tarmac trying to determine exactly, how this happened, the weather that was so great to have tipped over these planes on their sides, on their fronts. So you can see there, it looks like some tow trucks are on the tarmac as well. But unfortunately, one fatality because of this severe weather there. If we get any more updates or if police do speak to the public, we'll show that to you here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're going to take a quick commercial break, though. When we come back, we'll be giving an update live from Palm Beach, Florida, on the latest development in the FBI raid there at Mar-a-Lago and the legal battle that has now ensued. More on that after the break. Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. Well, earlier today, a Florida court officially delaying the decision on an independent review of materials seized from Mar-a-Lago. This comes after the Justice Department and the former president's legal team met in court today. And joining us live outside of the court in Palm Beach, Florida, is Fox's Caroline Elliott with more. Caroline, what did we learn today?
Well, at this point, Andrew, it's just a waiting game. The judge did not make a decision today, and it's unclear when the judge could make a decision on if an independent review is necessary in this case. Now, we do know that the judge seems skeptical, though, of the Justice Department's arguments against a third-party review. Judge Cannon, who's a Trump appointee, asked the Justice Department directly in court today, what is the harm in appointing a special master? Now, the DOJ said that this could delay their investigation and also added that these are presidential records that were taken from the White House. And because he is no longer president, he should have never taken these documents. Former President Trump's legal team argued there's a lack of trust in the Justice Department right now, claiming the trust issues started with the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago in early August and have only continued after the feds released photos of classified documents stored in Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. Trump's attorney said a third-party review could help restore trust in this process. And after court today, Trump's legal team wouldn't answer any questions on what happened in the courtroom or if Trump was concerned about any kind of future charge. From now, we'll just have to see what the judge decides on from here on out. Andrew.
Yeah, Caroline, do we have a timeline on that? That's what I'm really curious about. We know the judge there said that she would do this in kind of a written order, kind of like you were saying, but is that going to come tomorrow? Is it going to come next week? Or is this going to kind of slowly drip out here?
Well, Andrew, that's a great question. The judge said that she would release this information in due course, which essentially means an appropriate time, which is still pretty vague. You know, there is some speculation that this could be released either tomorrow or sometime Tuesday. Of course, Monday is a federal holiday that's recognized, so we're not expecting that to come Monday, but again, expecting it sometime either tomorrow or early next week.
All right, Caroline Elliott there, live for us outside the court in Palm Beach. Caroline, we'll talk again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go into this just a little bit further here. You saw some of the courtroom sketches. You saw former President Trump's legal team there enter and exit outside court today. So that's what we found out today. Unfortunately, if you were expecting a decision on whether or not the Trump team's request to grant a special master for this was going to come down today, well, we're not going to get it because Judge Cannon there declining to rule from the bench on this special master request. So Eileen Cannon, she's the U.S. District Court judge down there. She was appointed by then President Trump, declined to rule from the bench on this, whether she would grant that request for a special master. But like Caroline was saying, she did seem sympathetic to the idea. At times during the hearing, Judge Cannon said she will issue that written ruling in due course. So remember, the Trump team has hired the former Florida Solicitor General, his name Christopher Kise. He said the temperature in the country right now is, quote, very high. He says there's a lack of trust between the parties and a perception that this is not going the right way. He also said from the media reports there is a public lack of trust in the integrity. We need to lower the temperature on both sides. We need to take a deep breath. So we've been hearing as well from the Trump side. The Trump team also called the photo that was released of those top secret documents in the latest government filing, quote, perfectly staged and, quote, a press release jammed into the motion. Some of Trump's attorneys are also kind of likening this whole ordeal to a long overdue library book, alluding to those classified documents that were not returned to the National Archives in an appropriate manner. So, of course, we've been on top of the story here from the very beginning when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, and will continue to do just that as the legal battle plays out. Okay, from Florida now to Philadelphia, because the stage is set for President Biden's primetime address there right outside of Independence Hall in the birthplace of American democracy in Philly. He is there. He's landed. We saw it. We saw him get off Air Force One, greet Pennsylvania officials, including Governor Tom Wolf, also Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney, also Pennsylvania Senator Bob Casey. They were all on the tarmac to greet the president and the first lady. So in about 20 minutes or so, we'll be hearing from some of the experts and political analyzers who we are going to be bringing on to talk about what this speech is going to mean. It's essentially titled The Battle for the Soul of the Nation Address, a common refrain then candidate Biden used on the campaign trail as he was running to become president. And we've heard it time and time again in speeches he's given as president. So in the meantime, we want to take just a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be hearing from Republicans. They were kind of doing a pre-buttal to this speech tonight, speaking on President Biden's home turf in Scranton, Pennsylvania, as they, of course, in the midterm elections, try to recapture control of both the House and the Senate. We'll have it in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox on this Thursday afternoon. I'm Andrew Kraft. We just want to yet again update you on this story we're tracking out of Orlando, Florida at the moment. You can see there that overturned plane on the tarmac at Orlando's executive airport. One fatality being reported by officials on the ground there. This is all because of severe weather that moved through the area around 5:30 Eastern time, local time. Videos shared with Fox 35 in Orlando showed, and we're watching it right now, that small plane completely flipped over. You can also see, if they kind of pan the camera around, some of the multiple emergency management agencies on the scene. You can also see the very, very ominous dark clouds as this severe weather moved through. So at least one person has reportedly died after a pair of planes flipped over at the airport. Carolyn Fennell, a spokesperson for the airport, said one of the planes was unoccupied while the other plane was occupied. So if we hear anything from police about this, and if we speak to our folks at Fox 35 in Orlando about this, we'll let you know. Just wanted to update you guys on that. Okay, in the meantime, we're going to hear now from Republicans, Republican House leaders, speaking in President Biden's own backyard in Scranton, Pennsylvania, earlier today as kind of a prebuttal to what this primetime address is going to be in Philadelphia. It's called the Take Back the House event. Of course, Republicans want to recapture the House majority after the midterm elections. Let's hear from them. This is House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Jim, and more importantly, thank you. It's great to be in Pennsylvania. We're going to win this race, and this isn't going to be the only race we win. Before I begin, I want to thank Donnie for hosting us today with what an unbelievable, incredible shop, and for all the employees of what it does. By the time this year is over, I will have visited almost 50 states, met with people like you in coffee shops, diners, VFW halls, community centers, and like machine shops just here at Don's. Over the past month alone, I have traveled to more than 20 states and met with over 100 Republican candidates and members and thousands of their constituents. So tonight, I want to share with you what I heard from Americans across this country. What is clear to me and clear to you is that Washington and the White House aren't listening. They just don't get it. You have never been more worried, more alarmed by the direction of our country. Yet they tell you everything is fine. You worry that your children will have less opportunity than you did. Yet they tell you things are looking up. You fear that America is becoming poorer, less safe, less respected, and less free by the day. Yet they tell you the border is safe and America is secure. The White House says inflation is transitory. Deficits don't matter. And the spike in crime is just a bump in the road. Yet you know that doesn't add up. That's where we're different. I don't dismiss your fears. I share them. And I, along with every Republican running for Congress this year, share your unwavering conviction that we must change direction in Washington before it is too late. The American experiment and the good people who believe in it have not said their last word. The electric cord of liberty still sparks in our hearts. The spirit of the Pilgrims, the Patriots, and the pioneers still inspire our souls. Never in modern times has an administration promised more and delivered less. And they have no one to blame but themselves. In the past 2 years, Joe Biden has launched an assault on the soul of America, on its people, on its laws, on its most sacred values. He has launched an assault on our democracy. His policies have severely wounded America's soul, diminished America's spirit, and betrayed America's trust. For the past 19 months, Democrats have had total control in Washington. They control the House. They control the Senate. They control the White House. They have all the levers of power. So let me ask you this. How have they done? Democrats control every committee in Congress, responsible for our nation's safety, our prosperity, our education, and our government oversight. They are in charge of every federal agency responsible for our law enforcement, for drug enforcement, for our homeland security, for our border security. They are responsible for our food supply, our energy supply, our public health, our public education, our federal spending, our federal borrowing, and even our foreign affairs. So let me ask you again, how have they done? Are you better off? What has 2 years of one-party Democrat rule in Washington given us? Now let me state the obvious. Our economy is now in a recession. Here are the facts. Fact, our supply chains are collapsing. Our transportation system is completely dysfunctional. Air travel has never been more unpredictable. Fact, families go to the grocery store to find empty shelves. Necessities like baby formula have been impossible to find, which means many children can't get the nutrition that they need. If you can find what you need at the store, it costs more, a lot more. Food prices are up more than 13%, the highest increase ever. We're told again and again by Washington that it's all temporary. The historic spending binge of Joe Biden and his Democrat Congress has brought the greatest inflation crisis to this nation in generations. Democrats spent your money on wasteful projects, including millions on ski resorts and luxury hotels, and even spending $1 billion of hardworking taxpayer money on stimulus checks to violent criminals in prison. Yes, and they even sent one to the Boston bomber. This has only driven inflation higher. Here's what it means to the American people. For senior citizens, a lifetime of savings is being wiped out. Their 401ks are now 201ks. For our mid-career workers, wages are being ravaged. Young people cannot afford rent, not even to mention to buy. Mortgages are now out of reach. Families are barely able to make ends meet. Electricity and energy costs, they are consuming household budgets. Citizens are forced to make agonizing choices every single day just to pay the bills. You know, more than 20 million American households, that's about 1 in every 6 families, have fallen behind on their utility bills. The amount they owe has doubled since the beginning of the pandemic, and winter is coming. Fact, gas prices are 60% higher than what Joe Biden took office. He inherited energy independence from President Trump, but is now traveling the world begging foreign countries for energy to power our country. We have God-given American-made energy we need right here, right now. But Joe Biden has locked it away and raised the price of gas. Fact, real income. What you take home after inflation and taxes is lower now than when Joe Biden took office. Let me ask everyone this question. How many of you can afford to give up 1 month of your income? I bet not many. But if you've had a constant salary for the past year, you've had more than 1 month of your income taken away. Millions of Americans are falling backwards into poverty, not making progress. And the hardship does not end there. Because of the extreme soft-on-crime policies of Joe Biden and the defund police Democrat Party, our communities haven't been this dangerous in decades. You want the facts? Last year was the deadliest year in America in 20 years. That includes attacks on our police officers. And this year is no better. Democrat prosecutors and Democrat politicians have declared war on public safety. At our southern border, our safety isn't just at risk. Our national security has been compromised. Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democrat Congress have created the worst illegal immigration crisis in all the history of our country. They eliminated every successful policy put in place during the Trump administration and adopted a policy of releasing illegal immigrants by the millions into the United States. Our border is now wide open. Last fiscal year under Biden, there were nearly 1.5 million apprehensions in our southern border. Fact, that is a record. This year, Biden has already broken last year's record. Almost 2 million illegal immigrants were apprehended. That includes 66 individuals on the terrorist watch list. You have to ask this question. Why are those on a terrorist watch list coming to America, and what do they have planned for us? But it doesn't include the over 500,000 gotaways, or the countless more unknown gotaways slipping and completely undetected as our border agents are pulled off the line. Fact, the number of illegal immigrants who've crossed our border under Biden easily exceeds the population of dozens of states. Think about what this means for our healthcare system, our hospital system, our education system. And think about what a wide open border had meant for the lives of younger Americans. Criminal cartels are now in full control of our southern border. They decide who and what comes into our country. And that means record amounts of drugs flooding into our cities and towns. Every American city is now a border city. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. Fact, Biden's open border policies are killing Americans. Fentanyl is poisoning and killing 300 Americans every single day. That is equivalent to a full airplane crash every single day in our country. Why is the White House not treating this like the crisis it is? Speaking of younger Americans, our children are suffering as a result of Democrat school shutdowns. In fact, according to a national test results just released today, the pandemic has now erased 20 years of progress in reading and math proficiency. It is no wonder only 28% of Americans have trust in our public schools. And in a giant payoff to our education universities that charge more but deliver less value, Biden unilaterally bailed out high-paid, white-collar workers by transferring $1 trillion in student loan. That debt is now being paid by either people who've paid off their loans or never borrowed to begin with. We are losing our safety, our prosperity, and our freedom. The Biden administration's heavy-handed COVID policies, including firing our military heroes and our first responders, have undermined our freedoms and destroyed public trust. And what do we have to show for it? More Americans died of COVID under President Biden than under President Trump. Our pain and suffering at home have been matched by humiliation abroad. 1 year ago, our country watched in horror as Biden's botched withdrawal in Afghanistan left 13 American service members dead and landed a lasting blow to America's prestige that will haunt us for generations to come. Without question, Biden's decision led to the greatest foreign policy embarrassment in American history. Genocidal China grows stronger, bolder, and more aggressive by the day. Iran is closer to a nuclear missile than ever before. The world is more dangerous, more unstable, and more chaotic. Peace and security have been replaced by hostility and aggression. This is the record of Joe Biden. This is the record of a Democrat control in Washington. You, the American people, understand this. They want to revive the can-do spirit that this country is founded on. Yet instead of trying to bring our country together to solve these challenges, President Biden has chosen to divide, demean, and disparage his fellow Americans. Why? Simply because they disagree with his policies. That is